Hi, everybody. You're very, very welcome back to day 2 of the John McCarthy AI Summer School, AI Finance. We had a fantastic day yesterday. It was brilliant. The energy in the room, the connections, the speakers, everyone was buzzing. So we were delighted with yesterday, and we can promise you more of the same today. It's going to be a fantastic day. So just to kick off, what we want you to do is enjoy it. And we want you to find this valuable. So connect with people, talk to each other. For the people online, drop your LinkedIn into the chat section. Just talk to people, ask questions. We want you to come away with great ideas, great insights, and really great connections. And mostly just have fun and enjoy it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to our first speaker, which is Micheal O'Connor from NexGen Cyber. So Micheal has over 25 years experience in information security and risk management. And he has a master's from UCC and CISM certification, and he leads NexGen Cyber, providing bank-level security for SMEs. So you're very welcome in person. Thanks, Micheal.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So as we all know, AI is everywhere. If you just look at the news this morning, these 2 articles are on there about 8 in 10 companies using AI, or UCD and Met Aaron looking at using AI. It's all over the place, and we're all looking to get involved in it as quickly as possible. Within NexGen Cyber, we work with a lot of SaaS businesses that are building AI models and looking to introduce the next greatest AI application. But we also work with SMEs that aren't looking to build or develop their own AI models, but are looking to buy off the shelf AI. And so I'm going to focus the talk for today mostly around that side of our business and what you need to be considering as an SME when you're looking at AI as a tool to bring into your business and how you can use it effectively. As it says, AI is everywhere, including in this slide deck. And so, I'm not a creative person, but I can use AI to help me when it comes to presentations. The real benefit of that isn't anyone can put in a prompt, say, I want to create a presentation to speak about AI today. It's the knowledge and experience that I'm able to add to it, that what we do in our business, that will hopefully give you some insights to take away. So fairness and bias and mitigation are all important things when it comes to AI models. And you'd say, well, I don't need to worry about that if I'm going to start using Copilot. But as an SME, you do need to be thinking about fairness and bias and actually asking products and services that you're going to be using, what are you doing around fairness and bias? So if I go and take an off-the-shelf AI model in the morning and I'm not asking these questions or I'm not thinking about it, what impact is it going to have on my business? Because if the tool you're using has bias built in or has algorithmic designs that aren't fair or that discriminate or that come up with inaccurate data and results, it's going to reflect on you as a business. So whilst you don't need to be considering it in terms of the tool itself, you do need to be asking the questions, or you do need to be looking at these products and services and seeing what are they saying they do with regards to bias and mitigation. So why does AI security matter? It's all about trust. At the end of the day, you spend years and years building up your business, your brand, your reputation, and you come along and you plug in an AI tool and you have a data breach, and bang, in 1 second, that trust can be eroded. For us as a cybersecurity business, if any of our customers are breached, it's going to reflect negatively on us. For yourselves in accountancy practices, insurance brokers, all types of finance businesses are starting to use AI tools, but the impact of those tools providing incorrect information, incorrect data can really erode the trust. You'll see a constant theme throughout here in terms of trust and confidence. But you need to be looking at that and saying, do we know that the models we're using, the tools we're using, are going to continue to build on the trust and the foundations that we have as a business? Does it align with our business? Data privacy, just said yesterday, rubbish in, rubbish out. It's the exact same with data, and you'll all know this with your own business. Good data leads to good financial decisions. It can create lots of good insights. If you're using AI tools that have poor data underlying, so unstructured data, or it's not the way, there's lots of discrepancies in the data. If the data is bad to begin with, the AI tool isn't going to make the results or the predictions or any of the necessary things, insights accurate. So it really starts with looking at the basics and protecting not only protecting the data, making sure that the data is right before it starts being used. You know, if you're going to start adopting AI, looking at the tools that you're using and saying, how can we take a scrub data set? You know, let's wipe PII data, let's wipe sensitive information, but let's test it against safe data that we can use in our test models and validate the AI before we start using it in real time. So it's very important to test the data and to know the outcomes, because you need to be able to stand behind those outcomes, those results that you're getting from AI. You need to be able to explain them. You can't say, oh, we're using this tool from Microsoft, or we're using this tool from XYZ. Your business needs to be able to stand over the results that you're giving and the insights you're giving. You know, from a financial, from an accountancy practice perspective, you may be giving insights about P&L or information about customers' data. Again, the responsibility is on that practice to make sure that the data is good and that the tool that they're using is then aligning with their standards, their values. So it all starts with good data and getting your own data right in your business. And that's before you start plugging in the AI tools. So Echo Leak, some of you may have heard of Echo Leak. You know, Copilot's widely used. We use Copilot ourselves in our business. But Echo Leak was the first, or one of the first, vulnerabilities and attacks to do with AI and impacting Copilot. And from a security perspective, we've always talked to businesses about you need to train your users on being careful about what they click on, about phishing attacks and scam emails and everything else. Echo Leak is a zero-click attack. And so an email could be sent into your business with text hidden within the email. So it looks like a normal email. It could be a marketing campaign and you're going, oh, it's just junk mail. But behind that, white text, white background, you don't even see it. There's a prompt in there that's telling Copilot to then tell us the top 10 customers of our business and email it to this email address behind the scenes. So now all of a sudden, the landscape in terms of threats and attacks is changing. You know, technology has always been a fast moving space. AI is accelerating it. But the attacks, you know, as good as AI is, when we start using these tools, we've got to be aware of how the tools can be used negatively, how we can protect ourselves against such attacks. And so you could be using Copilot and oblivious to this type of vulnerability that's out there. Now, this has since been fixed by Microsoft, and it should say it's not a current threat from a Copilot perspective. But the next vulnerability will come out. And whilst you don't need to be aware of every cybersecurity vulnerability, you do need to be aware of the tools that you're using and are those tools impacted. So transparency is a very topical thing, and we were working with a pharmaceutical company with regards to an AI tool, looking at multi-factor authentication for access control. So when we come into the building here in the RDI Hub, I can scan my badge and then I come. And this business wanted to add badge scan. You know, the badge could be stolen and someone else could come in pretending to be Micheal O'Connor. So this tool that they were assessing, there's a camera on a wall, scan your badge, and then it looks at my image and it creates an algorithm of my image. It doesn't take my photo, or it doesn't store my personal data, but it has an algorithm of who I am. So every time I'd scan, the camera would look at my face, it would go, the algorithm matches that, I'm letting Micheal O'Connor in. Brilliant tool. But the need for opt-out and ethical compliance, you know, if there's thousands of people going into a premise and this tool is there, and just one of them says, I don't want that camera taking a picture of me, you need to consider what happens in that scenario. How do we use the AI tool? It might work for 95% of use cases, but how do we use the AI tool then for the 5% that want to opt out? And so it's about transparency. It's about providing awareness to your staff internally that, look, we're using this AI tool, and the benefits of the use of the tool, but also enabling people to say, well, if you don't want that tool used, how do you opt out? How do you not become part of the conversation? Explainability, again, not to touch on too much, but like 2 + 2 is 4. We can all explain that. You as a business need to explain where you're getting the outcomes when using these tools. You know, you can't just offload it to the tool itself and say, oh, we use XYZ product and they're the answers. You know, again, it comes back to your data, but the data itself needs to support, you can put the data in, it can give you the outcomes, it can do predictive analytics, it can make assumptions about where your business is going or growth or all types of things. But you need to be able to explain it at the end of the day. If and this is where the value really comes from, because as a business, we can all use AI tools to become more efficient and to do some of the mundane tasks, to automate a lot of work. It's where your business will thrive is using the AI tools and then your subject matter expertise, your knowledge and your experience to say, yeah, here are the insights. This is what we've extracted out of your business. Again, I'm sticking with the scenario of P&L and insights into business, because I've been having that conversation myself this week. But if my accountants can use an AI tool to tell us about growth and predict where the business is going to be 6 months from now, and can give us insights into what we should be doing financially to better help us, and they can explain the results of the tools that they're using, then I'm going to have trust and confidence again in what they're doing for us as a service. Contracting with vendors, from a security point of view, again, it's supply chain attack. And so, a lot of banks in the US and banks in Ireland and banks in Europe would spend an awful lot of money on cybersecurity and making sure that they're secure. But one of their big concerns is third-party risk. And so it's the same with vendors. Your business, you might be using lots of different vendors to deliver services to customers. You need to be asking them, as well as doing cybersecurity audits on your vendors, you need to be now asking them the questions about AI. Are you using AI in your business? How are you using AI in your business? So many businesses now are integrated with each other, and there's data flowing from company A to company B. Again, you need to know if that data is being manipulated, changed, updated with the use of AI tools. And so even just, in terms of proactive actions and things that you can do today, when it comes to vendor assessments, even just starting to build in the questions around, do you use AI in your business? How do you use AI in your business? How do you ensure that, how do you explain the results of the tools and products that you're using from an AI perspective? So all of that on the vendor management side of things, there should be good vendor management and supplier relationships in terms of making sure you know what your vendors do and how they protect their data and everything else. But now it's bringing in AI and asking them the right questions. And that's on your business and for you to take responsibility for. Data integrity, validation, ensuring that the data is consistent, validating it and monitoring it. Anyone that's plugging in an AI tool and then going, great, we've got our AI tool, we don't need to worry about it. You need to ensure that you're validating the results, that you're monitoring it, that there's traceability. So how did the model come up with these answers? What does the model have access to? To take the Copilot example again, very easy to turn, if you're using Microsoft in your business, very easy to turn on Copilot. But if you've never looked at securing any of the data within your business on SharePoint or anything else, then it's very easy for any of your staff to put in a prompt and say, tell me the 10 highest salaries in the business, and Copilot to return it. That won't happen if your SharePoint environment's been locked down and secured by departments, by teams, by needs to be. And so these tools can add huge benefits and insights to us, but we need to make sure that they're set up correctly to begin with. Confidentiality, I touched on it on the last slide, but access controls, who has access to the data, and safeguarding the data that the AI teams have access to. If there is an incident, what are the procedures from an incident management perspective? It's so often, we don't say if, but when. And to change that mindset, a lot of businesses think, well, if we have an incident, we'll deal with it when it happens. Practicing and thinking about the scenarios that could happen, and how would you deal with an AI incident in your business? If there was a data breach, if someone in your company uploaded data to a tool that you weren't aware of, how would you communicate that and put customers at ease with regards to the incident? So incident response, yes, the monitoring side of things, you want to make sure that things are secure, but you want to have your playbook and know the scenarios and be able to talk to them if it ever does come up. And then compliance and ethics, are you able to demonstrate that you're using these AI tools in a compliant way? in an ethical manner. Human oversight, accountability is so huge. And the balance between humans and AI is where I think the real value is going to be in the next couple of years. Yes, we can automate a lot of tasks, but it's then the value add that you bring on top of the AI that's really going to help, making sure that you're able to, sorry, I lost my train of thought, making sure that you're able to take the AI tools and talk confidently about how it's being used, about what insights it's bringing for your business, and about how, someone could be questioning you then to say, well, we don't need you as a business at all. It's not to do away with your business. It's the strategic value add that you can then bring, and being able to evolve as a business, from a business 5 years ago that wasn't using AI today to bringing AI in and adding more value. So frameworks and standards. Again, there's two frameworks here, the NIST AI Risk Management Framework 100-1. Anyone that wants to look at frameworks and standards without talking to NexGen Cyber or any other business can look up NIST AI RMF framework, and it's freely available to download. You can take that away and you can look at that in your business and say, how do we apply some good standards to our business today? How do we apply best practice with regards to AI? ISO 42001, again, another internationally recognized standard, but all about best practice. And from a cybersecurity perspective, we'd help companies implementing good process frameworks around cybersecurity, but frameworks around AI are going to be very important for businesses as AI continues to grow. The benefits of frameworks, again, they help support the tools you're using, creating an AI policy to say this is our policy. If anyone in the company wants to use an AI tool, what's the process? Can they just go out and start using an AI tool, or do they need to go through some sort of approval and mechanisms to start using the AI tool? Policies sound a bit boring and sound a bit mundane, but they're there to protect you as a business. Get the policy right, and then your team will be able to bring AI into the company in a safe and ethical way. So just to conclude, and a shameless plug, we work with Cyber Ireland, the NCSC, and Enterprise Ireland to help implement their cyber review grants. But the great thing about the cyber review grants is it is a cyber audit. Now, AI is another technology tool that comes under cyber audits. And so if your business is working with if you're an Enterprise Ireland client and you're looking at how do we bring in AI and use it securely, then this may well be for you. The cyber review grant can then help you to assess where your business is today, how secure are the tools that you're using, and what are the tools that you want to use. And there's great 80% funding from Enterprise Ireland with regards to cyber review grants. And then the NCSE have the cyber remediation grant, which is up to 60,000 for a business, 80% funded. And so if you complete the audit and there's a whole list of things that you need to remediate, you can then apply to the NCSE and say, look, we want to put these things in place. And some of that could be AI for security, for securing your business, or it could be AI for tools that will help to improve how you're working as a company today. Just to leave you all with proactive AI security, and going back to the point of rubbish in, rubbish out. If your systems aren't secure today, they're not going to be any better when you plug AI in. Building trust and accountability. We all work so hard to build trust in our businesses. You need to be able to stand over the decisions that are made with the AI tools that you're using. And then engagement, collaboration. You're going to be working with different partners, whether they're vendors, whether they're suppliers. The business ecosystem today we work in is very mixed, both nationally and internationally. And so making sure that when you are engaging with clients and customers, that you're having those conversations about the use of AI in your business. So thank you. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Michael, guys? I am.
AI to propel them to execute this kind of game changer. Get excited about the sense.
The
guys better in terms of your assessment.
Yes, yes is the quick answer. And I suppose there's many different tools. So not to bore the audience on security tools per se, but in terms of access control and people accessing, logging into a system in the morning, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of logs being written about people accessing things. And from a cybersecurity point of view, you want to be able to decipher the good stuff from the bad stuff. Now, AI can show you that everyone in the business is logging in from within islands. You know, it can help to then flag, here's a login coming from China, Russia, wherever, and it's suspicious. You know, it can stop it. You know, we're using some AI technologies to fail close. So when you see something bad, stop it immediately. On the flip side of that, and this is why you can't just take one size fits all and throw it into the business. On the flip side of that, if you say stop it all immediately, you can actually break things for the business. And so if our customers can't log in because the CEO has gone to Spain in the morning and he's at a conference and he needs to work from Spain, it needs to be smart enough to understand those different changes. And so in that scenario, a fail close might not be suitable. So that's very much in the cybersecurity side of things. With my business hat on, and running my own business, yes, there's lots of tools again that we're looking at, that we're assessing for customers, and assessing the use of. You know, we're working with some brilliant companies that are looking at building out LLMs, and different use cases for AI. And what's really refreshing to see is those companies actually coming to us early in their own development and saying, we're on this path, we've got this product and this idea that we're looking to build out. How do we do it securely? How do we make sure that we can build that trust up with our customers to use our AI tool? And what do we need to do along that journey? Because cybersecurity, it doesn't all need to be done today. You know, there's a timeline for everything. And so a lot of SaaS companies that are starting that journey, we're helping them to have those conversations to know what they need to do when. There's a lot of business tools though that are massively helping. And we're assessing them all ourselves. Like I said yesterday on the panel that, you know, we had a business call and a consultant was on the call and had an AI recording tool, and I nearly had a heart attack. I was like, stop, pause on hold, turn off. And the next 15 minutes was about what's the panic about? But like if you're not able to call these things out in your business, it goes back to the trust piece and the accountability piece. But it's not to say we don't want to use AI recording tools, and we do use them now, but it's what tools are you using and doing an assessment of them. And so I think, yes, huge potential, lots of great tools out there as well. Like that one that I mentioned about the multi-factor access control, brilliant tool. And like when you explain how it's used and that it's not actually taking a picture of you, it's taking an algorithm. It's all ones and zeros that have you can't make that algorithm back into my facial image. People start to understand it and then start to trust it and say, yeah, we can use that. But before that point of explaining it or explaining the tool and how it works, there's an element of unknown by your workforce, by your team about what is this tool, how's it work? So all of those things are really important. But yes, massive benefits. It's really exciting time in terms of where we are with AI, and we're only at the tip of the iceberg.
No, it's interesting. Email.
Sorry, Brian, can you use the microphone so people online can hear you?
No employee gets an email this last couple of months saying, could he get 1,500 euros in the newly issued Revolut card that he had? Get 1,500 euros and meet the CEO who was living in the US, who had just arrived in Ireland. Meet her at a local hotel. She needed cash to do something in business. And there's 1,500 euros gone. The poor guy did it. Met somebody else. He never met the CEO. This is, I mean, it's kind of extraordinary stuff. And I'm figuring out, how did he know how did somebody know she was in the country to do this? And how did they target a new employee? Well, obviously somebody was listening, but there was a load of people using AI meeting notes. No, it's pure conjecture, but I'm sure that it happened. I suppose what you're worrying about all the time is when there's a change, when there's a new system that doesn't have the right checks and balances. Because it's shocking the amount of it that's happening. So I'm just curious how how do you begin to assess all those companies, or how can they buy into it in
Well,
a cost-effective way?
from a cyber awareness point of view, let's put it out there all the time in terms of cyber awareness. One of the things we do an awful lot is talk about cyber awareness. And the scenario you gave there had so many red flags in it that you'd be going, how did this happen? But it's happening every day. And the thing is that it's widely spoken about at cybersecurity conferences and different events like this, but you bring it back to your business and one person has heard about it, but does it trickle down? And is everyone aware of the threats that are there? One of the things we do as a cyber audit, and like the Enterprise Island audit that I had up there, is we do an assessment of a business online before we ever go into the business or have any access to their systems. We say, right, what can we see about this company online now today? And taking that scenario, you see that there's a new CEO and that there's an announcement that he's arriving in Ireland next week or something posted on LinkedIn. And, we post so much information out there without even thinking about what is it we're disclosing. And when you join a lot of the dots together, you can see that Mary has started in the company last week. Now, Mary hasn't had the cybersecurity awareness training or hasn't done the induction program. And all of a sudden you're going, right, here's an opportunity to target Mary, and here's the scenario that she'll believe. Again, from cybersecurity point of view, we'll look at what are the tools your business uses. And we'll be able to see that you're using zero for accounts. So there's no point in sending a QuickBooks email into that company to say, click on the link, here's your QuickBooks link. It's going to fail. If we target it saying QuickBooks XYZ, a very logical, reasonable type of email that Xero would send out, you're going to be more likely to click on it. And so there's so much that's out there about the tools that you're using, about the systems that you have, about your people, that it's very easy. You can see how people get caught in these mistakes, but it's the same with bringing AI into the fold now. It might be a collaboration and you're really proud to say, yeah, we're collaborating with this AI company to make things more efficient and better for us and everything. But now all of a sudden the bad guys can use that as an attack. They can be looking at the AI company or looking at, again, the vendor type attacks that I was talking about. They can be looking at the third party and saying, how do we get in?
Because I keep thinking about that case, it was 1,500, could have been 15,000, but how did they know that company was vulnerable? They must be using some kind of tools to assess where the vulnerabilities are.
Sorry, guys, I'm going to have to cut you off and you can take this offline. We're on the clock here. So, and Michael, that was a fantastic presentation. And just out of curiosity, can people access this deck if they reach out to you? Would you be comfortable sharing this deck? It's really good.
Yeah, if anyone wants the deck, please come up to me after this. I'll be outside and happily share it with you. So give me your details and I'll send it on to you.
Yeah, and for anybody who's joining us online, that's Micheal O'Connor from NexGen Cyber. So connect to them on LinkedIn and you can get a copy of the deck. Michael, thanks a million. That was really, really good. Thank you. And everybody, I encourage you to catch up with Michael while we have him on site. So just if you have any questions, and sorry to cut you off. Okay, next we have Brian Walsh, who is the CEO of Reitigh. Brian has sent us a pre-record because he's traveling at the moment, so he's not able to actually join us in person. But Reitigh specializes in AI insurance and financial services, and Brian is an advocate for change and digitalization. So.
Good morning, my name is Brian Walsh, I'm the CEO of Resolve, and today I'm going to share insights with you on how we've been using large language models and generative AI to get process efficiencies and remove tedious work both inside Resolve and inside insurance companies. At the end of today's talk, you'll have a much better understanding of how large language models work, and you'll leave with practical insights on how you can apply large language models to solve real-world practical problems inside your organizations today. We're going to look at a few different things. We're going to start off looking at avatars. So avatars are like synthetic video. So it's going to look like a person and sound like a person, but be completely generated by a computer. We're then going to look at chain of thought, which is an improvement of how large language models reason about complex problems and why you will get much better answers from large language models when you ask them complex problems than you would have 12 months ago. We're then going to look at agentic AI. What is agentic AI? What are some of the different ways that it has been implemented? And some practical ways that you can use agentic AI to solve real world problems. And finally, we're going to look at automating Excel analysis, where we at Resolve have used large language models to automate the analysis of end-user computing across the back office of an insurance company. So we're going to start off looking at avatars. And as I said, avatars are like synthesized video. So we're going to look at two videos of me. One is going to be synthesized and one is going to be real. I want you to try and guess and see whether it's just a normal recording of me or whether it's been entirely generated. So we're going to start off and we're going to play the first video. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 6th John McCarthy AI Summer School. It's a lovely Thursday morning in London, and I'm here to talk about what's on everyone's mind, AI, and what it means for the future of finance. Let's dive in. Okay, so that was the first video, and now we're going to play the second video.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 6th John McCarthy AI Summer School. It is a lovely Thursday afternoon in London, and I am delighted to be here to explore something that's on everyone's mind, AI and what it means for the future of finance. Let's dive in.
So can you tell which one was real and which one was synthesized? So we're in quite a contrived environment here because I've explicitly told you that I'm going to show you some video that has been generated by AI. So it is quite realistic the way that it's been generated. The second one is the one that has been synthesized, and basically the way it works is that I recorded about 45 minutes of myself reading a script and uploaded that into a service, and that basically trained the model on how to speak like me. So to the point that I can now type text into a box and press generate, and in real time it will generate audio of me talking in real time, and it does all of the undulation of the speaking and sounds like sounds really like me talking. And then you take that audio and you give that into another service where again it's been trained on 25 minutes or 30 minutes of a recording of me, and it takes that video and synthesizes both the audio and the video with the lips moving and everything in sync. But so what, right? Is this just a party trick, or is there a real world application where this could be used by actuaries and by insurance companies? And we've seen this been used by insurance companies in two main ways. The first is to replace in-house training. So typically insurance companies would do a lot of in-house training where they'd hire actors and they'd hire videographers or VFX engineers to come and create training internally. And it would be quite an expensive way to create the training. Whereas now insurance companies are trialing using avatars to generate video synthetically rather than hiring actors and rather than hiring videographers. So they've done this for two main reasons. One is for cost savings, and in particular where you need to translate the video and the training into multiple different languages, there's a real opportunity for significant cost savings that can happen here, where you can essentially, when you've used an avatar and you've synthesized the video, you can press a button and it will produce a video in German or Japanese or any language that you need. It will be translated in real time using large language models, and then it will be synthesized with the same look and feel but in a completely different language. So there's a big push to try and roll this kind of technology out at the moment. For example, Keir Starmer and Jensen Huang, who's the CEO of NVIDIA, spoke at London Tech Week earlier this summer about how they were working with the FCA to control rules on how this type of synthesized video could be treated as investment advice or not as investment advice. We've seen companies like UBS try and roll this out to provide a highly personalized service to their investors, where essentially a large language model would be used to summarize documents across the investment landscape that a particular investor has, and then their broker IFA agent would then be synthesized talking about a summarized version of that document. So rather than just throwing lots of PDFs that come at policyholders or investors, you can use large language models to summarize and then have someone that they know, like a broker or an IFA, say the words back to them in that kind of summarized way. So that provides a much more personalized service. And this is almost akin to like a private banking experience, which would typically have a much higher cost base. So you're able to provide a private banking experience at a significantly reduced cost base to customers. Next, we're going to have a look at chain of thought and how chain of thought has extended the capabilities of large language models to answer much more complex questions. So to start off, we're going to look at how a large language model works. And essentially, all a large language model does is it predicts the next word in a sequence. So here we have a sentence saying, Brian didn't have breakfast today, he is feeling very. What the large language model is going to do, it's going to predict the next word is going to be something like tired or hungry or something along those lines. And that's all a large language model does. It predicts the next word in a sequence. So when we talk about models, we're essentially talking about the probabilities of how words are related together. So a large language model, the model is that it has done statistical analysis of how words are related together. So while as a human you'll say, well, Brian didn't have breakfast today, he's feeling very hungry, and you're using an English understanding of the meaning of the words in the sentence to predict that hungry is the next word, the large language model isn't doing that. It's predicting the next word in the sequence, but it's not doing it by understanding what the words mean, more that it's looking at the statistical relationship of where it's seeing those words words in the entire history of all language that it has ever had fed into its training. So the model in large language model is that probability of how words are related together. And then the large language part means that it is essentially trained on all words that have ever been put on the internet, that have been hoovered up by the large language model generators, and are used to generate those probabilities. And essentially, you iterate this process to create a more fuller response. So you have, Brian didn't have breakfast today. He is feeling it will predict hungry as the next word, and then it will predict the following words, so something along the lines of, so then he will get some granola. And it is predicting each of those words one at a time by feeding all of the previous words in, including the word that is just generated, to generate the nth plus one word. And how that tends to be used in an insurance context or a finance context is that you pass English information into the prompt, into what you're asking the large language model, and you can use the large language model to turn that unstructured text into structured text. So here we have an example of some information on a savings product. It talks about minimum investment amounts and maximum number of years and various types of fees. And what we can do then is ask a question saying, well, please take this information and create a table about product codes and fees and trail commissions and so on. And what it looks like if you run this inside ChatGPT is you take unstructured text and it will output a structured table. So it doesn't matter the way that the text is laid out. You could have it's not parsing the text in the prompt. It's understanding the relationship between the words in that to predict the next word in the sequence of the table. And you can use this and iterate over a wide number of product specs to generate a table that you could store in a relational database or use for various processing. And we see this a lot in financial services. So what chain of thought does, it still is just predicting one next word in a sequence, but what it's doing is it's layering in a little more information to create intermediate steps. So if you go on to ChatGPT now and you start asking questions, you may notice that it takes longer to answer complex questions, and it will have this thinking icon, and you'll see that it's flashing up thinking. And essentially what it's doing in the background there is it's creating intermediate knowledge based on the prompt that you've asked. And sometimes you'll see this information. So we have a video where we're going to show answers that are being generated in a modern large language model environment, where it's popping up what some of these intermediate steps are. And it stores that in what's called a scratch pad. So if you imagine that you have a complex question, what happens is the large language model will still just predict next words in a sequence, but it's using some intermediate reasoning to create a scratch pad of additional information. And then it uses the prompt and then additional information that it has generated itself in the scratch pad to generate a more fuller answer. And that's how it's able to get answers to much more complex questions than would historically have been possible. So the way that I like to think about this is that it's essentially generating more information in the prompt for you automatically. So you filled in some of the prompt and it goes and generates an even better prompt on your behalf. So what we've done is we've taken a question from one of the final actuarial exams. So this is from SA2, which is the life insurance exam, and it's basically a question around an insurance company that has a with-profits business and has launched a traditional unit-linked business, and it is asking questions about Solvency II, what caused the bell to fall on a particular type of, on one line of the business, and whether or not it should sell, what are the consequences of selling one of the lines of business. So normal strategy things that come from running a life insurance company. You'll see this thinking coming up. So you can see here that it says thinking. What's happening in the background is it's now creating the scratch pad. So what it's going to do, it's going to take the question that we pulled out of SA2, and it's going to take this information that it has generated in the scratch pad, and you can kind of see how it's working here. It's asking questions about, lapse rates. And so you can see here it thought for 35 seconds. So that's the chain of thought where it is creating that scratch pad. And then it comes up with quite a complete answer at quite a technical level. So it's finished now, and you can see that it's generated quite a complex answer, including UK-specific laws around employment that would happen if you'd sold a particular line of business with employees attached to it. And you may think that it has just gotten this information from the examiner's report, but we've disabled web searching here, so it has not just gone and read the examiner's report and used that to find the answer to the question. It has used that by predicting next words in a sequence. So after this, we then went and took the examiner's report and graded the answer that the large language model had produced based on the contents of the examiner's report. And you can see here that it got passing grades for this question. So while this is an exam question, it is just strategy of running a company, strategy of running an insurance company. You're thinking about selling a particular line of business and you want to know what some of the potential consequences are. And we often use this as this kind of thinking assistant. So rather than looking at it as a pure question and answer where you're looking for facts, you can use large language models as a thinking assistant where you have some decision that you want to make. There's not a right and a wrong answer, but the large language model can produce a vast array of different possibilities for you to think about. And if you use that as a thinking assistant, you minimize the opportunity that you're going to forget something, particularly something obvious that may be forgotten. We've all been in meetings where we've gone down a rabbit hole of looking at some very nuanced aspect of a problem, rather where there may be some quite fundamental challenges that we may need to address. And the large language model will just output all of those kind of things in a really clear and concise manner. Next thing we're going to look at is agentic AI. So what is agentic AI? So chatbots are very good at explanation, summarization, and data extraction. And if you've used the online versions of ChatGPT or some internal chatbot that your company has, you'll have had that experience of, well, I can ask a question and maybe it can go off to a knowledge base and read all of the documents that my company has and give me an answer. And it can be very good at that. But what it can't do is let's say send an email, right? So you can't go onto your internal chatbot and say, please read all of these documents and send an email to my boss summarizing them all. You typically have to extract that and do the kind of interaction with the real world on your own. And what agentic AI is about using large language models to drive processing inside other systems. So it's not just about question and answer that happens inside a chatbot, but having real world effects on other systems. So that you could say something like, well, create an order based on information that you go and find in one database, and it would go on to the order management system and create a trade or do some activity that would have a real world consequence rather than just having a back and forth inside the chatbot. So agentic AI is essentially this kind of orchestration service where you can still speak in English, so you're still just giving instructions in kind of a natural language, but the large language model is orchestrating a number of back-end systems to achieve a particular goal rather than just giving an answer to a question that you've asked. And there are two main ways that this has been approached. So the first one is where you hard code all of the interactions. So here, where you have a large language model and you want to be able to send and receive emails and you want to be able to run queries on databases and make updates to databases and look at your customer management system and make changes to that. What the first approach that people did was that they would hard code all of the interactions between these systems. And this requires a gigantic amount of bespoke programming. In particular, there was a Chinese agentic software called Manus that built a gigantic number of links to third-party systems like this. And the problem is that it becomes very brittle. So anytime that any of the linked system changes, you need to then change the overall system here. So if your email server changes how you can interact with the email server, you then need to go in and rewrite the code for that to enable the agentic service to continue to function. So this can become very expensive to maintain and very expensive to build and is very, very brittle. The newer approach for this is what's called Model Context Protocol, or MCP, and this was pioneered by Anthropic. And essentially this reverses the responsibility, so that instead of your large language model needing to know how to send an email, instead your email provider has what's called a Model Context Protocol server that surfaces back up information on how a large language model can interact with it. So it then means that every single service provider that wants to enable agentic AI or to enable a large language model to interact with the services that are being provided, whether it's an email server or a database server, the onus is on that particular service provider to provide what's called this MCP agentic server. So this is like a generic protocol for interacting with services. Consider it like a USB. So in the way that your laptop has USB ports, into a USB port you can plug a keyboard, you can plug a mouse, you can plug a webcam. You don't need different ports for each service that you want to provide, whether it's a mouse, a keyboard, or a webcam. Instead, there's a generic protocol for your laptop being able to communicate with all of these peripheral devices. And that's the exact same way that MCP works here. That your large language model is able to interact with an email server to send and receive emails, and it's able to interact with a database server to write database queries and get results back, or to update values inside a database, using this generic protocol for exchanging requests with the different service provider. And the onus is on the provider of the email server, or the provider of the database, or the provider of the CRM, or the policy admin system, or the general ledger, to provide these MCP servers to enable the large language model to interact with them. So to take an example of how we're using this kind of agentic processing inside Resolve, we've developed a coding agent that is able to go on to Jira and pull down bug requests that have been loaded into Jira and automatically try and fix those bug requests against the code of IntegraLinks, which was our application. And this is quite a complex thing to try and do because IntegraLinks is millions of lines of code. It's a complex data management platform. So the Jira has been written by an end user. It's a bug report saying that something doesn't work in the way that you would expect it to work. It's not a technical specification of how to go and change the code. So to have something that's able to translate an English representation of a bug to go and find the lines of code across millions and millions of lines of code and then to put in a bug fix is quite a complex process. But it works very well. So what we have here is a graph of how much this costs and the amount of tokens that we're sending back and forth with the large language model. So essentially, to fix a single Jira item here, we spent about $2.77 and about 12 minutes of processing time to fix a complex Jira item. So the overall process of how this works is the large language model pulls the text of the Jira item that has been approved or signed off for change and takes that Jira item, passes it into the agent to go and find the bits of code that need to be edited to do it, and then creates a pull request to push those code changes back up into the repository. And that pull request then gets tested manually by a person, and the code gets reviewed by human review to get integrated back into the application. And this has completely changed how people interact with the change management system, because now you're able to create a ticket to have a change made to the code, and when it gets approved for change, essentially 10 to 15 minutes later, you're able to pull down a new version of the code and see the effect of that change having been fixed in real time. So you're not just reducing the time of developer effort in making a change, you're more so increasing the number of change requests that are made, because there's a much more interactive way of making a change request and seeing the effect of that change request happen in real time. So I think when I look at a lot of the concerns that people raise around, well, am I going to be put out of a job by AI? What I see happening here is that the development effort of making changes has gone down significantly. You've gone from potentially hours of a developer's time trying to find the right piece of code and to suggest a code change has gone down to minutes, but the number of those changes that are being requested has gone significantly up. And the effort has now, instead of been put into bug fixes or minor change requests, has gone into identifying better ways for the application to work, which is a much better job for people to be doing, a much more enjoyable job for people to be doing, rather than trying to fix difficult to find bug requests. The last thing we're going to look at is automating Excel. So we're going to bring it all together into an insurance context where we've built an agent for automating analysis of Excel files. So insurance is littered with end user computing. A huge amount of it is in Excel, and a lot of it is very hard to analyze. So here we have a screenshot of a sample Excel file where we've got some reinsurance treaty information, but you have a single sheet in an Excel file where there's multiple tables of information just strewn at arbitrary points inside this sheet. And we see this as a really common thing in clients, particularly where we go in to try and automate processes. We end up with somewhere between 10 and 1,000 Excel files containing gigantic amounts of these kinds of tables, but also logic that can take a person a really long time to pull apart. So maintaining an understanding of what these Excel files do and understanding the data lineage of where the information is coming from and the relationship between sheets on Excel files or different Excel files that are some on SharePoint, some on network storage is incredibly difficult. And our goal here is to use agentic AI to automatically document and understand what these Excel files do and basically build a picture of the end user computing that goes on in the back office of an insurance company in order to increase control, so just documenting what's there, but also to look at what you can automate and where are some of the main difficulties inside the insurance company. So there are a few very common challenges that we see in this task. Number one, there are multiple parameters and tables embedded throughout the spreadsheets, starting at random points and ending at random points, and may change from month to month. Very hard to understand what's going on here. It's also, you need to be able to abstract redundant information. So you could have a sheet or a tab on an Excel file that has lapse rates that may have 1 million cells in it, but you need to be able to understand, you need the automated analysis to understand that is essentially just one piece of information. That's just lapse rates. Whereas the million cells that contain lapse rates are essentially just as important as the one cell that contains the start date or the end date, that you need to be able to abstract information that is not intuitive. And then we get awkward things like embedded screenshots. We get clients that send us screenshots of emails where they've extracted information from an email that they've gotten from an investment manager or some third-party credit rating agency, where they've just embedded screenshots in the middle of an Excel file that forms a core part of the process inside that EUC. And finally, just some random hard-coded values. We often come across big tables of data where formulas are filled down, but randomly in the middle, you'll have hard-coded values, or the formula will change, but it won't be obvious why that's changed. And this is why we see that the big tech implementations of large language models, Microsoft Copilot and so on, are not going to solve these kind of very complex, nuanced, insurance-specific examples, where insurance companies have a huge number of these type of Excel files in the back office, where a generic Copilot style tool is not going to have the nuanced understanding to be able to parse out quality information, and you need something more bespoke. And that's essentially what we've tried to provide at Resolve. So what it looks like, you basically get a browser-based interface that you upload your files to, you upload your EUCs to, and it will use agents to extract that information, to extract information at the tab level, at the table level, and to understand the relationship of where information is coming from and how it's being used. So here's an example of what it looks like. And then you can also start to spider out and to find EUCs and create a map of how EUCs work across an entire organization. So this is very similar to how Google goes and finds pages on websites. So you have files that are in a particular folder, whether it's on SharePoint or on some attached network storage. You know where those files are, but you don't necessarily know where all of the other EUCs are, or how those files are related to each other. That if you were going to turn off some of them, what would be the effect of turning it off? So this is called spidering, where essentially you open one file and you look for all of the links, whether it's in macros or whether it's in formulas, to all of the other files that are on the network. And then you go and open up all of those files and you see, well, where are all of those files linked to? And then you can create a diagram of a network of all of the EUCs across the back office, including whether it's on SharePoint, whether it's on attached storage or on people's hard drive somewhere. And this enables you then to look and see, well, where are isolated parts of the EUC infrastructure in the back office that I can start to turn off? That if I turn these off, I'm not going to affect anything else outside of that. Access is definitely the most difficult part of this. So, and it also drives whether this can be completely automated or manual. So in particular, different folders on drives have different access permissions, and it may not be easy to get an individual user account or service account that is going to be able to read all of the Excel files that are in the back office of the insurance company. So access is definitely the most difficult part of getting this to work. So to conclude, while there's a huge amount of hype behind large language models and generative AI, there is an unbelievable amount of value that can be unlocked today with the technology of how it sits inside organizations. So there's a huge amount of value that can be unlocked using the technology that's available today, whether that's using a chain of thought to act as a thinking assistant to help you with strategic decisions, using agentic AI as an orchestration level to achieve end-to-end automation, where you're able to affect real-world change rather than just having a chatbot-style experience of question and answer, or whether you're going to use avatars to create a more personalized experience for policyholders or staff as part of training. There's a gigantic amount of value that can be unlocked using the technology that's available today. So please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I hope you've gotten some value from this. I hope it's become clearer what agentic AI is and how it works, what chain of thought is, and how that works, and how large language models have become much more adept at answering considerably more complex questions, and that avatars can be used to provide a much more personalized approach to communication with both internal and external. I hope you've enjoyed the talk, and thank you very much for listening.
I have so many questions. I'm definitely going to be connecting with him. Such a pity he's not here in person. That was fascinating. I really enjoyed that. Okay, guys, our next speaker is Steuart Alexander, who is the program manager at the Central Bank's Innovation Sandbox, and they focus on fintech and regulatory innovation. And so there's been a great deal of interest in this presentation. Really looking forward to hearing this.
So my name is Steuart Alexander. I'm the Sandbox program manager here in the Central Bank of Ireland. So what that means day to day is when the Sandbox is running, I liaise with the companies that are part of the program, connect them into the specialists in the bank, and organize speakers for the workshops. We're just managing the day-to-day operations of the Central Bank's Innovation Hub. And today I just want to talk to you about the Innovation Sandbox program, because we are due to launch or open the window for applications on Tuesday. So it's about payments, the next program. So it could be of interest to some of you. On to the next slide. So what we're going to cover today is I'll talk about the central bank's approach to innovation, so our engagement facilities more broadly. I'll talk about the program, an overview of it, the features. Just briefly touch on the first program, which is on combating financial crime. I'll mention the piece of work we did with the University of Limerick, and also on the next steps of the innovation in payments. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any from the floor. If you want to interrupt me, I'm okay with that, or I'll leave some time at the end for questions. So we have a suite of services here at the bank, innovation engagement facilities, of which the Innovation Sandbox program is just one. But just to be aware that we do have the Innovation Hub, and this is for really any inquiries that you have. It's very open from any firm, any inquiries for the bank about regulation, or if you just want to talk to the bank, you can always reach out to us at innovation@centralbank.ie through the Innovation Hub. Just go onto our website there, you'll see a way to do that. We also run data hackathons, which is the piece of work we did with the UL, which I'll talk about later. And we run events and round tables. And now here about the Sandbox program itself, the overview and features, because sandboxes can be a little bit confusing because there's no one sandbox model. They're very different, and ours is different. So I'll just spend a bit of time talking about how it is different. So we have three principles. I'll just draw your attention here to the left of the slide. Our program is very much outcomes focused. We want to set objectives with each of the participants, and then make sure we're doing our best to meet those objectives. So that could be the outcome could be commercial products that go live, could be proof of concepts. We really want to work towards that during the 6-month program. We're very open, and this is the same for the Innovation Hub. We're open to applications from partnerships between tech firms and regulated entities, from regulated entities solo, from startups, scale-ups, research initiatives, open to anything that's going to solve for the problem statements of the Sandbox program. And collaborative, this is something we really learned from the first one, but that focus on trying to make it as collaborative as possible, everybody talking to each other and using our convening role, which is the next part down. These are the tools that we have at our disposal as a central bank. What can we offer you as a participant in the program? Well, we can use our convening role, which, if you don't know what that is, it's, we, as a central bank, we have the ability to bring together all these different actors to solve the problem, these organizations. So it could be EU bodies, it could be other regulatory authorities. We can bring them all into the program and connect them to the participants to try and solve for the problem statements. And we also can offer, obviously, regulatory advice and support. That's our bread and butter. So we have all these experts in the bank across all these different areas, and they can offer advice and support to the participants. How the program actually looks, just on the right hand side, there's 3 features to it. There's monthly modules. So this is really where we come together for half a day. We have an agenda set. We get updates from the projects, how they're developing. We talk about cross-cutting regulatory themes, so that like ones that could be applicable to all. And we get a mix of internal and external speakers in to talk at those. Then we have bespoke engagement. This would be my role, where it's the day-to-day running of the Sandbox program, meeting the participants as much or as little as they want, but it could be once every 2 weeks, just checking in half an hour, how they're getting on, who do they want to speak to, any way we can help them, plug it in with internal and external SMEs when necessary. And then we also offer a third-party provided data platform. So there's a provider called NIA1, and they offer this to the FCA's digital Sandbox program, and we have NIA1 there as well. So on this data platform, you can access public synthetic data sets and also a developer environment to test and iterate on your solution. So they're the 3 features. Importantly, what we don't offer, one second. we don't offer derogations or waivers. And this is where the confusion sometimes comes in around sandboxes, because of course the FCA was the first to move on sandboxes, like regulatory sandboxes, and theirs was it offered derogations and waivers, and with that live consumer testing. But our research, when we were looking about setting up our own sandbox program, is that's a very onerous process. A lot of other NCAs across Europe have launched similar regulatory sandboxes, and it's kind of like a quasi-authorizations process, because if you're going to offer a derogation or waiver, you need a statutory instrument. It's takes a long time, and for any firm that wants to get into it, there's a big slow process to get into it, and there's actually not that much interest from what we've seen. A lot of the other NCAs who have those. So we don't offer derogations or waivers. We try to be a lot more nimble and respond to the needs of the firms faster. We don't have an endorsement, so participating is not an official endorsement, and we don't match participants with each other. Now, briefly to touch on the first Sandbox program, which is about combating financial crime and what we learned from it. So I talked about how we liked to see outcomes, and it's outcomes focused. This here is some of the outcomes from the first program. You'll see here on the left, there was a partnership that came to the program between PTSB, which we all know, PTSB, and Cedechi. You're probably all familiar with Cedechi. Cedechi is a Waterford-based technology company that works a lot with privacy-enhancing technologies. But there is a pain point in generally when you're onboarding, like digital onboarding these days, around the address verification part, because you either have to have a copy of an address or an electronic copy, which, you know, there's risk there that it's fake. So Cedechi and PTSB came together to solve for this problem during the program. Cedechi has this partnership with ESB networks, and they can use their privacy enhancing technologies to check against the ESB's database of addresses and verify, is this address tied to this person. So it's a really nice project for us to have in the program, because it solved for a systemic issue. It was obviously a partnership between a tech company and a pillar bank, and really good outcome in that it's now it's still in production within PTSB, but hopefully we see it be rolled out later this year. Another participants was Forward Emphasis and Besabi, again a partnership between a regulated firm, insurance intermediary, and Besabi, a UK fintech, using AI to detect fraud in the post-sales process in insurance. And then Roseman Labs was another good one as well. They are a Dutch, again, technology company, and again using privacy enhancing technologies, but they got 2 Irish banks to work together with them on a data sharing initiative using these technologies. It's called Article 75 partnerships, without going into what that is, but it's 2 years away. There's going to be an option for firms, private sector entities, to collaborate and to share data, because it's very important to share data to solve for financial crime. And Roseman did this, and it was a great outcome. They did this proof of concept, and we learned a lot about this regulation, and the banks did too. But again, it was good to see that kind of thing come forward. So one of the big pieces was the collaboration that was fostered between financial institutions, tech firms, and regulatory bodies. So yeah, we want to continue doing that in the next program. As regards learnings, we really want to maintain momentum. We felt the first program went well. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on it, and so we announced the theme for the next program at the showcase event, the last day event of the first program. So we're really trying to maintain the momentum, keep going forward, keep getting applications. It's really good to see the ways of working. So the central bank staff are really open and engaged with the participants, and it allowed them to learn more about these regulations and these technologies. So, you know, as opposed to the Innovation Hub, which might be, it's most of the time it's a one-off meeting. the program allows you to repeatedly meet these firms, talk about what they're doing. We got opportunities from the firms for them to present to us about technology. So it's kind of a nice two-way dialogue and two-way learning, which is good for us. I mentioned the pre-implementation, so that Article 75 piece. Again, a great thing for us to be able to do to kind of test this regulation in advance of it coming into effect. And I talked about our convening role. We knew we had this role, but we see how the program itself can really leverage that, and focusing on outcomes. It's not just consultative engagement, it's a real, we're really working towards something and using that role. The next program is, we want to bring in third parties, and we're broadening the theme scope. So it's not just combating financial crime, it's payments, which could include fraud as well. And we're going to look about how we can use a data platform how we can use that better to basically get data needs identified earlier. So I'll keep trucking along unless there's any questions. I had mentioned the work we did with University of Limerick. So this is under the bank's research affiliate program. We worked with Dr. Barry Sheehan there in UL. So we did this hackathon, which is really nice to do. With Barry's students, we opened up the data platform. I think it was like 40 students could access the data sets there in the data platform, and they developed their own research projects using those using the data that was there, which is great. So we went down to UL. We had a presentation from 6 of the top research projects, and we'd love to do that again. In fact, we are going to do that again for the next program. We're looking to do something with the Bank of Italy to kind of open it up a bit more. And we're also working with Barry on an academic paper. So this is going to more rigorously kind of assess the central bank's Innovation Sandbox program against other peer programs and come up with things that we can learn from it. So that's going to be, I think we'll get an SSRN paper in the Q4 this year, which would be good to see what they come up with there. So obviously independently done. And then we also working on a learnings report right now. We're drafting that as a team, but we're bouncing off UL anything that they have to input onto it as well. But this is basically it's going to be published, I think, late October, and it'll be all about what I talked about the last 2 slides, our learnings, any strategic insights, a bit about the 7 participants in the program and what they got from it. So the next theme is innovation in payments, which is a nice and broad theme, and we all know how important payments are to the economy and to everybody has to make payments, so it's really key to solve for it. And yeah, the program provides a strategic platform for public-private collaboration to shape the future of payments. So we're coming up with problem statements, which I'll share with you on the next slide. But there's so much to consider for this program. There's a national payments strategy. So we looked at that obviously closely when we were coming up with the problem statements. All the themes there around resilience, operational resilience, innovation, sustainability. There's different regulatory frameworks like the Instant Payments Regulation, PSD3, obviously digital euro, what's going to happen there. And AI for the theme of the last 2 days of the event here. Agentic AI payments, what's going to happen there? We'd love to see some applications in that space. That'd be brilliant. And how that's going to impact on finance. Digital tokens, so stable coins. It's just stable coins is the topic du jour. It's very much, well, along with AI, a lot of precipitated by what's happening in the States, a lot of activity there. And obviously the central bank's priorities around consumer protection and operational resilience. But that's all the things we're thinking about for the program, and what shaped our problem statements, which are these, which we will announce the actual questions that underpin these areas on Tuesday when we have the application window open. But there are 4 areas. inclusive access to the digital economy. So it tied to that's kind of financial well-being, but it's about that inclusion piece. Then frictionless and transparent money movement, resilient and secure payments, and safe integration of emerging payments technologies, which is where we'd have the likes of AI and stablecoins, tokenization. They might come through that problem statement. So this 4 areas, just to reiterate, they will be 4 questions, and we will ask that each applicant align with one of these statements. So just pick one that you're most closely aligned with, and in the application form, tell us how you're aligned to that problem statement. So for the selection criteria, we hope to get a good amount of applications. We got 38 for the first one. And because this is broader, we're hoping we might get more. But we obviously can only select based on what's in the application form. So it's important to make a strong application form. And we're going to assess each application against these selection criteria. So there's 4. You'll see relevance, which is going to be obvious. It's got to be relevant to the program and to the problem statements. So you want to see that alignment basically between the project and the solution with the program itself, the innovation and payments, the problem statements. Need. So we want to see a compelling case showing that the Sandbox program is essential to the innovation development. So with this, we want to see applicants who have read the website, read the features, understood what they can get from the program, and detailing what they're going to do during the program. So we can see, okay, these guys, they need to be part of this program. Readiness, we want to see evidence of being ready across multiple areas. So it could be you've identified a potential market route for the innovation, how it's going to scale, a revenue model, just to see that you're ready to really grow once you leave the program, because the central bank's mandate is all about consumers and the system. Like big mandates, we want to see participants that can come and impact on those mandates. And then capability, you want to see obviously a credible team there that's in place and ready to engage with us with good expertise and resources. You can engage with the program over the 6 months. So each will have in the application form, we'll have just at the top of the application form some kind of generic questions about the project and innovation, and then the actual scored parts are the questions that are underpinned of these 4 criteria. I think there's 2 questions for each criteria, and I just urge there's a guidance note as well on our website, and there will be frequently asked questions. So anybody interested in making an application, just make sure to read what's there on the website and just take some time, because you will have until November 10th to make an application. So just take your time and get it in good shape, because we can obviously only score based on what's in the form. As regards timelines, for the first program, we're working on the insights paper, which I mentioned, which we're going to publish in October, and then mentioned the paper that UL are drafting on the program itself. That'll be hopefully November. As regards Sandbox 2, I mentioned that we're open for applications on Tuesday. So there's an event at the bank. We're going to officially announce it. And then the window closes on the 10th of November. And then we're going to be busy then after that, assessing the applications. The final call is made by a selection panel in the bank. So we have a bunch of directors in the bank. We also have the new research affiliate, gentleman from UCD, but they decide basically based on the selection criteria who to select, and then we'd approach the people who were selected, and hopefully all going well, we'd announce the actual participants in January. That's how it's looking. Next steps again, dates here again, and then if you have any questions, please contact us. Any questions at all, we're very open to any questions, receiving them. So about the Sandbox program, I'll pick that up. That'll be sandbox@centralbank.ie. Reach out to us. And Owen, my colleague, he can talk about the Innovation Hub. That's innovation@centralbank.ie. There's a lot on our website as well. So encourage anyone who has an idea, who wants to apply, to make an application, because we'd love to see good applications come through. And with that, I can stop. If there's any questions, happy to take them.
Thanks very much, Steuart. That's fascinating. I can imagine there's people in the room might be interested in applying. I'm looking at you, Fexco. Just a quick question about the 6-month program. What's the frequency of attendance, or what does that 6 months look like?
Yeah, it's a fair question. So for this program, we're going to have 5 modules. So it'll be half a day. Where you come into the bank and we'd be required to attend those. And then for the bespoke engagement, that's really how much or how often the participant himself wants to meet. So if you want, that could be half an hour meeting once every 2 weeks, could be once every week, could be more, but there's not that much of a resource ask. Obviously, we'd expect in the background of the actual program that you'd be working on the innovation, developing it over the 6 months. So however long that takes, obviously that's up to each participant. But the actual coming into the bank, it's the half-day sessions and it's the bespoke engagement are the 2 main pieces.
Thanks very much. Guys, anybody have any questions? 1 second. We just get the microphone. Just 1 second, Steuart.
Thanks very much. It's Steuart. That's a great presentation and great to see it happening, because there's been a lot of expectation of the sandbox, but I think it's great. We're seeing the results of what you're doing in phase 2. A couple of questions for you. Firstly, just around the role of convening, as you said yourself, that was one of the learnings for yourselves. And again, some of your peers across Europe would engage with centres of excellence such as the RDI Hub, to focus here being fintech and AI. Do you see a role for a regional partner as a test bed, perhaps that some of your participants could actually use as a centre of excellence for themselves? And if so, is there an appetite to work regionally with places? Is that a learning that perhaps you've discussed with Barry for the report? And maybe the data platform is another side of that as well, an off-site data set where the collaboration could be a bit greater than just in isolation, working with you one-to-one as a participant. Perhaps somewhere like this at a regional level would be a good partner. Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great shout. Yeah, we'd so the way we did the first one was the half-day sessions were on site. We have talked about how we could break that up, and we did go down to UL for that event, but maybe we could do more as regards actually collaborating with different organisations throughout Ireland. So we'll take that on board. We'll consider it. Like there's, I can see it would be a great value. We haven't got any plans now, I'll be honest, but I can't see why we wouldn't discuss it at least and see what we could do.
Anything else? Yes.
Hi, Steuart. Yeah, it's great to see a program like this in place. Can you talk about, have you considered supports and how a technology, the journey from Sandbox to actually a real product? So have you any thoughts on supports or how that journey will be fulfilled?
Yeah, so this is where we kind of have to stay in our swim lane as a regulator. So we can offer as much regulatory advice and support that you might need, that you can ask all the questions you want. But as regards technology support, we wouldn't have that expertise here. So we leave it to the participants to, if they are as part of a partnership, how they might develop that. But we wouldn't have the, say, if it was about like tech support, that kind of thing, we couldn't offer that. It's really, I talked about the 2 tools. It's the convening role. We try and connect you as best as we could to somebody who could help you. and we can obviously offer the regulatory advice and support. But beyond that, as a central bank, that wouldn't be our role about the tech support, if I'm understanding the question.
Yeah, I suppose really, like it's great to see innovation. I suppose I'm just talking about bringing it to the rubber hitting the road and real users using it. I suppose that's what I'm getting to. And obviously in this area, regulation is huge, right? So
Yeah.
we talked, I'm not sure if you were on yesterday, but talked about go fast and break things. You can do that in a non-regulated sector, but in this sector, you can create innovation in a sandbox, but that might actually be only 10% of the actual challenge. The 90% could be actually getting that innovation out and actually getting real customers using it. And I suppose that was kind of the key thing. I think you probably, like I said, obviously you need to stay in your swim lane, but I think it's a key challenge that should be looked at if it isn't already being considered. And I specifically in regards to regulation, I think there's definitely a role for you to play in educating and supporting people and bringing this innovation actually into real production in the hands of customers, because you know yourself, it can be very difficult to get over those regulatory hurdles and actually make these innovation real.
Absolutely. And then if there are any questions, like Innovation Hub, you can always, if the program is to, you know, is not, if you're not ready for a Sandbox program, but any questions, Innovation Hub, I can't encourage that enough. We try to be as open as we can. And I know the AI Act is there, very relevant to the topic of this meeting. So there could be a lot of questions around the AI Act, how it's implemented. So, and we have a team here, a policy team that are looking at that. And if you contact the Innovation Hub, you get to talk to that team. So we'll do as much as we can to help you around those regulatory questions.
Thanks.
That's great. Thank you so much, Steuart. Really appreciate you joining us. That was a fascinating presentation, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you all. Bye-bye.
Next up, guys, we have Luca Marchesotti, who is an AI entrepreneur and the founder of Gemmo AI, and he's also a member of Ireland's AI Advisory Council. So, Luca, are you on the line and can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect. That's great.
Hello, everyone.
Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this opportunity, and sorry for not being with you guys. I'm traveling. So just a quick quality check. I'm going to share my screen. Can you please let me know if you can hear me and if you can see my slides?
Yes, it's perfect.
Lovely. So today's talk is about finding your AI path. In summary, what we're going to do is we're going to look at why AI development is urgent in financial services. And then we're going to look at a very unique way to find your AI path. So I'm going to give you some examples and then draw some conclusions altogether. As it was mentioned before, I'm the founder of Gemmo AI. We are an AI company based in Dublin. We also have an AI lab in Milano, from where I'm talking. And I had the privilege to start my career with AI in academia, and I navigated then my AI path through corporate research. I was with Xerox for about a decade, from 2006 to 2016. So it can be said that I've been very early with this amazing technology, and at the moment I'm leading Gemmo. I'm also a member of the AI Advisory Council, so we're advising the Department of Enterprise and Trade on AI strategy. And yeah, it has been a very amazing journey, to be honest. And the future is very exciting for, I think, everybody, for every stakeholder. So a couple of words about Gemmo. Is an artificial intelligence firm. It means that at the core of what we do, there is AI software, but recently we also plugged in an AI consultancy service because we realized that many of our customers needed help in the identification, selection, and prioritization of AI use cases. So before further proceeding, I think it's very judicious to share a couple of beliefs that we have. And because everything we do is driven by these beliefs. The first one is that it's all about human amplification. As you might have already heard in many talks today, it's not about replacing human, it's about combining them in a meaningful way with AI so that we can really boost performance. And this is particularly true, I would say, in financial services where for regulation and compliance constraints, you can't really bypass the human. So the human is indeed in the loop. It is an augmented human. The second belief is about co-creation. We have been working in AI for a number of years, in my case, a number of decades, but every customer is the expert of their own business. And that's why we strongly believe in co-creation, and all our processes actually are structured and designed around this co-creation principle. So basically, we bring the AI knowledge, our customer bring their processes and their knowledge of the industry, and at the intersection of these two propositions, there is some custom integrated and unique AI that we develop in behalf of our customers. Another very important lesson learned is that the top-down strategies don't work when it comes to AI, simply because AI is so related to the human nature. If we want to amplify human performance, we cannot really design AI processes top-down. And that's why we have this tool and strategy that is called the AI Pathfinder that takes advantage of a bottom-up and top-down approach. And here I'm referencing a very famous book, 1979, Mintzberg, that basically stated the same 30 or 40 years ago. Last but not least, we strongly believe that basically not every AI should be built internally. I was today in a workshop provided by Snowflake, and it's amazing what it's already out there, ready-made for you to use, reuse. The question is really, what should you be making in-house and what you should buy off the shelf? This is a strategic question. And even in this specific nuance of the problem, we have our own opinions and we advise our customers. So a couple of organizations that we have amplified, actually more than a couple. In the past, the market was very fragmented, so we were very agnostic. So to be honest, we were working with a lot of big logos that you see here, no matter their industry or segment. And now we are basically laser focused on financial services for a number of reasons that I will omit. But this is now, this has given us a lot of experience in multiple verticals that we're now consolidating into the financial services market. We have built a lot of models in the last 5 years. We also patented a lot, and we benefited from funding from the European Union. Last but not least, we are also a very networked in academia. 60% of our technical team holds a PhD, so we have these ties with universities that have been very helpful, not only to secure European funding, but also to keep us up to date with the latest on research. So let's now go to the second part of my talk. And to be honest, I think I should even skip this, because at this point you should be convinced that, you know, it's really, we really live in the time of AI, and there is an urgency to develop AI and AI models, especially in financial services. So we'll go quick here. The only thing that I wanted to tell you is that while AI is yet another platform shift, softwares, smartphones, and web open source and PCs, this is the next big thing. Actually, the new big thing. The difference with the past is that the speed is really staggering. We are supposed to be the expert. We are living and breathing AI, and to be honest, we're struggling. We are struggling to keep up. Like it's going too fast. So maybe you know it. Maybe you know it already. But for us, it's a challenge. It's a challenge because customers are becoming much more aware of what is possible. Customers already have their own agenda, technical agenda, I mean, and their own ideas. And for us to get in and bring our own solution, it's getting harder and harder. Also, we hear feedback and we hear voices in consultancy, and they're very worried. They're very worried because the value proposition of a pure consultancy company is getting eroded by all those pre-made things that are available in the market. From the customer perspective, great news. You're going to spend less. You're going to get your AI integration faster, and you're going to build in-house know-how. It sounds fantastic. The reality, as you know, is more complex. As we were hearing before, the reality is made by AI solutions that needs to be controlled. Oversight is still, very blurry because we don't know yet how to implement all these regulations that are provided by the EU in our case and from other government agencies. So it's complicated but promising. So I'm going to now look at the very specific way in which we solve the first problem, which is decide what to implement. Okay, you might be aware of the famous, or I don't know, infamous MIT report that was out, I think, 3 or 4 weeks ago, where basically the researchers stated that 95% of AI pilots fail. The response of the markets was quite strong. I think there was a dip in all big tech funds and stocks. So I won't get into the details and I won't comment on that number. To me, intuitively, it seems like it's a bit overstated. 95% basically means every single pilot in AI fails. Yeah, I don't believe in that. But even if it was half of it, even if it was 50%, that's way too much. And the reason why pilots and AI projects still fail is one. And I think is the fact that a lot of people are simply tackling the wrong problem. So the AI Pathfinder, what you will see now, is a solution to address that specific problem, avoiding focusing on the wrong use case. So basically, we work with financial services, and in financial services, what is great is the fact that everything is measured, and everything has a number associated to it. So ROI is the most important thing, to be honest. So measuring the upside you create, it's basically number one. Second is risk. So what if I introduce the wrong type of AI that jeopardizes my business? What if I am an asset manager and I introduce an optimization portfolio model that messes up and I lose money, or I create an issue with my customer base? So this is not possible. So you simply can't go into an asset manager suggesting an AI that could jeopardize their business at that level. So risk is the number 2 variable that we also take into account. And then there's the effort. And this is, I would say, less prominent and less interesting, less important aspect if you think about an AI use case, because the money, to be honest, is not the problem here. The problem is wasting their time, wasting their focus, and creating a liability through either operational risk or financial risk. So with these 3 parameters in mind, we designed a process that measures each one of them for each use case that we surface. So to be very specific, our model, which is a quantitative model, look at 3 areas in which we can return on investment. The first one is the obvious one. It's cost savings, right? And again, I would like to stress a very important fact here. Nobody wants to fire people, okay? Nobody wants to replace people. When I'm saying cost savings is, the typical scenario is, I'm an asset manager, or I'm even a retail bank. I want to scale, and I can't find people. I can't find good investment analysts. I simply can't find good risk experts. And my growth is jeopardized by this HR issue. So the idea is to grow without burdens and without constraints on HR. How do you do it? By plugging in AI and by increasing the upside. The second one is standardization. Despite what we might say, not everyone has the same performance. So what if the AI was able to standardize performance in terms of quality and speed? So give a little uplift to the guys that are a little bit slower, so that everyone is on par with expectation. Finally, again, in financial services, it's all about basis points. It's all about finding and squeezing those extra basis points from your investment strategy or from your portfolio optimization. So how do we do this assessment? Basically, we look for factors. So we interview the domain expert. So we would literally get into the building and talk to the people that are actually running risk, running investment strategies, and we would look for these long list of just 1 second. Can you please go in the other room, because my Microsoft will conflict with yours. Sorry, guys. So what we do basically is we look for these factors, and we have a very long list of questions that would uncover the presence or absence of these factors. I'm going to give you just some examples. So if the objective is to measure cost savings, we're looking for processes that are long, that have many users, that have a lot of bottlenecks, okay? If we're looking for standardizations, we are looking for processes that have a lot of errors, that maybe are executed across departments, where basically standardization can make a difference. When it comes to the actual calculation of the ROI, it's a formula. And this formula basically adds up 3 components, one for cost savings, one for improvement, and one for basis point. So the analyst basically picks a value between 0 and 4, and then we get a number between 1 and 10, adding up all these 3 variables. Again, I would like to stress the fact that while this is a quantitative measurement, a lot is delegated to the intuition of the analyst. So basically, we talk to the subject matter experts, and we assign these scores, okay? And they give an indication on how a specific use case is relevant when it comes to ROI or risk. So at the end of the day, yes, as I mentioned, we have this score between 0 and 10, and this helps us define a ranking in this ROI axis that you see on the right. Then there is a gating. As I was mentioning, there is absolutely no question about those use cases that don't have a human oversight. We just discard them, okay? The ones that are not compliant with the AI Act, so the high risk ones, again, we would not recommend them. Same thing for GDPR compliance. So once this gating process is completed, then we are assessing risk. So risk basically breaks down in two different components: implementation risk and governance and regulation risk. Same concept here. We have these factors, and these factors are telling us whether or not these two risks are low or high in the risk scale. Just a couple of examples. Implementation risk is basically the risk of failing with the project delivery. And typically in our statistics, it's all about the data. When there is a lack of data, when the data is not clean, when the quality of the data is low, implementation risk is a real threat. However, the risk our clients care about is the second one, is the government and the regulation risk. Because this is the risk that they are going to absorb and they're going to feel the pain of later, after deployment, when they're using AI. So all the risks that we were mentioning in the previous talk, fairness risk, explainability risk, privacy and ethics risks, these are the important ones. To make the story short, we score these risks separately. So we score implementation risk, we score the government and regulation risk, and then we add them. Now, the interesting thing here is that we're not adding them in the same way. So we're not weighting them in the same way for a very simple reason. As I mentioned before, a financial services institution cares about government and regulation risk much more of the implementation risk. In other words, they don't care that much about wasting the money, to be blunt and honest. It's more about avoiding creating liabilities down the line. You might say, okay, so you did all this scoring, so what is the final outcome? And how this final outcome brings us closer to the promise that I made at the beginning, which is help me find the use cases that are interesting and that are high priority. So the answer is in this canvas. We call it the AI canvas. In this AI canvas, you see the two axes that I was describing before. The ROI axis, low to high, on the right, and this is the vertical axis, and then there is the risk axis. Okay, so if you look at this, you can start, already drawing some conclusions, because all the AI use cases that are going to land on Q1, which is the top left, are good AI use cases because they have high ROI, and but they are actually quite risky. There is an even better quadrant, which is Q2 on the top right, which is called cash cow. This is really the sweet spot, because we have the low risk or lower risk, high or very high ROI. Okay, so now we have this AI canvas, brilliant. We can project the use cases that we found by talking to the subject matter experts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take an example of an asset manager. Obviously, I'm not going to disclose, what these use cases are, but I'm going to give you an idea of the typical distribution. I apologize. In the next slide, you will see the risk axis flipped, but it doesn't change anything. Okay, it just changes the way in which you have to read this AI canvas. Don't worry, I'm going to guide through it. So this is the AI canvas that I showed you before, with the same quadrants. The only difference is that cash cow now is on the left and star is on the right. So I apologize for that. So what it means is that the good use cases are in the still in the quadrant number 2, which is in this slide, top left. So a couple of interesting insights here. So what this slide tells you is that in a typical asset manager, the bulk of the use cases belong to investment. And this is not surprising. As you can see, these bubbles, each one of them is a use case, is color coded, and each color represents a department. And you see on the top the legend. So the colors associated with each department. So what this distribution tells you is that also risk and compliance is a high value department, but they are obviously more risky than the others. Every time you touch compliance, every time you touch the risk department, obviously there is an implication when it comes to AI for governance and compliance. So what else can we draw from this distribution? Well, that some other operational and support use cases are probably the low-hanging fruit that we might start with. In other words, on the bottom right quadrant, which is bottom left quadrant, which is the number 3, bedrock, you see use cases in green and orange. So these ones are low risk, low return, but also very low effort. And let's see if I can show it that. So basically, what we're doing here is we're trying to organize the paths, and we are trying to organize the paths by looking at this distribution and making sense of it. A very simple way to order these use cases and opportunities is to find a score. What if I was telling you that after testing wild formulas and wild algorithms, we came up with the conclusion that the best possible score was just the one that you can see on the bottom right here. So we simply take the ROI score, which is the value on the vertical axis, and we subtract the risk. So if you do this, you see that each dot now has a value. And not surprisingly, as I was saying before, the highest values are in this quadrant here. So this is good because now we have a value, we can create a rank. So we can take the first one, the one with the highest value, 8.8 in this case, and say, okay, this is the one that we're going to tackle first. And then take the negative one, if you see there is a minus 0.8 at the bottom in bedrock, and say this is the last opportunity that we're going to attack. Now, if you do this, you get to a situation where you have numbers. You see the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is what we call a path. So each path is a group of use cases and AI opportunities that should be attacked in the same time period. So to be very specific, for this client, we have devised 3 paths. Each path is basically 1 year of work, and each path has, give or take, 15 use cases. Now, these paths are ordered, and more importantly, each path can be measured in terms of ROI, in terms of risk, and in terms of effort. So in conclusion, this is the big picture. This is the big picture of the AI Pathfinder delivered for a client. And this is just an example. 57 use cases selected, 3 paths created, an estimated 105 person months, and interesting breakdowns. For instance, about 50% of these use cases have generative AI in it, the rest standard machine learning. 30% can be developed with low-code platforms, and in 12 of them, we have the concrete opportunity to develop some secret sauce IP that can be protected in behalf of our customer. So I would like to stop here. I think I am out of time. And more importantly, I'd like to take questions, comments, reaction. Again, this is our way to capture AI opportunities, but maybe you have your own way, you have your own process to discover your AI path. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca. That was really comprehensive. We are caught for time, but if anybody has an urgent question? No, I'm sorry, we're pressed for time, Luca. Thank you so much. We're going to have to move on. Thanks a million.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, thanks very much, guys. Next, we have Micheal O'Shea, who is the CTO of Metamo, and he's going to talk us through Metamo's AI initiatives for credit decisioning in credit unions.
Thanks, Kerry. Good morning, everybody. 6 minutes left in the morning. My name is Micheal O'Shea. I'm from Fexco, from this neck of the woods. I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about AI and our use of AI with credit unions, of all things, which you might think would be a sleepy little hollow part of Ireland. And what the hell are they doing with AI? But we're doing quite a lot. I'm going to bring you through a few journeys. This is around AI for loan decisioning for credit unions. But at the end, I want to show you a little demo of where AI is headed in the credit unions. Just a little bit about Metamo. For those of you that don't know, Metamo is a joint venture between Fexco from this parish and 16 of the largest credit unions in Ireland. And those 16 credit unions approached Metamo a few years ago, and they said, look, we're getting bigger. Technology is jumping ahead of us. We're falling behind. How can you help us? So Metamo was formed back in 2019, I think. And I suppose one of our mission statements is there to support credit union viability and sustainability through a modernized suite of financial products, including lending capabilities. Now, you're all probably members of credit unions here. Hands up who is, just a quick poll, hands up whose account is dormant at the same time. A lot of you as well. People tend to open credit union accounts and it's opened by granny or whatever back in the day, and then you kind of use it for a few years. You might save it, you might go to college, you forget about it. But typically we find that as people get into their 30s and 40s, suddenly the credit union is somewhere that they can go back to. One of the problems we're facing in credit union land is that loan decisions were taking a long time. So just a little bit of context about credit unions. You probably know a lot of this. Credit unions are member-owned, community-focused. Typically, our credit unions would have between 30 and 50,000 members. The boards are volunteers, and I'm going to speak a little bit about that. It's great because there's actually an article in the Irish Times today. Up to now, volunteers could have stayed indefinitely on boards. I think the central bank is going to put an end to that. They're going to put a time on it. So a lot of directors that would have been with credit unions for maybe 20 years are going to be forced to retire. And hopefully that'll give a younger cohort a chance to become a volunteer on the board. And ultimately, the decision-making process in a credit union, it might go up to the CEO, but if it involves a large sum of money or a strategic decision, it'll go to boards. And that can be a blessing or a challenge. They're built on trust, fairness, and transparency. That's important because we've heard a lot of talk about AI models, and can you trust them? Are they fair? And can you prove that they're transparent? It would be fair to say that credit unions are probably more regulated than the pillar banks. They're regulated by the central bank. The central bank would argue that because of the volunteer nature of boards, that they need more regulation. I'm not sure, given the performance of the Irish banks over the last few years, where they should have been regulating, but it's quite a regulated sector. And finally, smaller data sets. And we all know machine learning, AI, it loves data. Unfortunately, if you have a credit union with 50,000 people, you don't have a lot of data. It's tiny. And that can pose a bit of a challenge. So, what's AI bringing to the credit unions? In this context, we're talking about lending. It would be fair to say that up to a few years ago, if you went into a credit union and applied for a loan for 2 or 3 grand, it might take 2 weeks, which in today's world is nuts. So one of the things was faster and more accurate lending decisions. The second one was a standardized lending decision. The fact that you should be able to go in the morning and look for 3,000 euros in credit union X and get the same standardized decision if you're a member of another credit union. Before that, if the lender was there on a Monday morning and he had a heavy night and Sunday night, he's a little bit hungover, well, he's going to make a decision versus the younger lender maybe on a Wednesday that's much sharper and can take a more nuanced look at your loan. So it's all about standardization. There's a lot of staff in credit unions that decision loans. Probably too many, well, not probably, too many in fact. And one of the things that AI and bringing a kind of a standardized process towards loan decisioning is that would free up staff to look at more complex loans. Credit unions do a lot of loans like for a community hall. That can be a multi-step, multi-credit union process. There's for example, the National Basketball Centre are looking to build a new basketball centre in Dublin. They've approached 4 different credit unions in the Dublin area, and that loan is going to have to be created across 4 credit unions. It's going to take them a few months to do it. Whereas you want your staff working on that kind of complex loan up to 50 million, rather than approving 2 grand, 3 grand, 4 grand loans every day. Neobanks and BNPL, buy now, pay later. We all know the Revoluts and the N26 are coming in. They're attracting the younger cohort. We all know the buy now, pay later button at the bottom of the Harvey Norman website or whatever it is. Increasingly, the younger cohort of people, if they're looking at a purchase on a website, and we have data to prove it, if it's between, say, 200 and 1,000, they split. They like to go for the split the payments with buy now, pay later providers in the market, and we believe there's a few more coming into the Irish market. Related then is to attract the next generation of members. I have 2 young fellas, they have Revolut. It's going to be a challenge to get them into a credit union. I think it'd be fair to say you all have similar stories. So I guess that's a little bit about the promise of AI for credit unions. Some things that we have to solve for, and we've heard a lot of these over the last 2 days, bias and fairness challenges. Our decisioning process works by taking the historical loan book data out of a credit union. One of the fields I'd love to use is gender, because it's an absolute fact that women pay back loans much better than males, but I can't use it. The AI Act will stop me, GDPR, all these things will stop me. So we have to be careful about what data we're use and allowed to use. Small data sets, as I said, we'd love to amalgamate all the different credit unions' data, and we are working towards it, and create one big data set, because a car loan that you get from Killarney Credit Union is pretty much the same car loan that somebody in Sligo Credit Union will get. And if we had that historical data set, and if we had the blessing of the central bank to knit it all together, we could create one bigger data set. Compliance, GDPR, the Credit Union Act, some brilliant bedtime reading if anybody wants to read it tonight. It's an interesting piece of legislation. The EU AI Act and the central bank, these are all feeding into the compliance. We have to be compliant, and it's no bad thing. I think once you know what the rules are, then you can innovate inside those rules. AI models, are new to credit unions, we often get challenged. Well, can you explain that particular loan decision? We're lucky to have an AI platform that is able to explain it, and we can go back and show this is how it works. This is why this loan was approved. This is how this loan was referred. We don't reject loan applications. We refer to the human. And again, it's back to the human in the loop. So I'm going to bring you on, I suppose, a legacy journey. This is how life was before our decisioning platform came along. And I want you to meet Mikey from Killarney. And Mikey's going on holidays and he's applying for a €2,000 loan. And he goes up against Johnny, who's a loan officer inside the Killarney Credit Union. And Mikey typically would have filled out a form and dropped it into an inbox in a credit union, and it would have sat there in a pile, and eventually Johnny would have looked at it. And at this stage, it could be 2 days in. Now, Mikey wants to go on holiday, so he's already 2 days down. So Johnny would normally give Mikey a call, and he'd ask Mikey to print off his bank statements. I need to get a picture, yeah, so find a printer. Who has a printer at home still? Who has a printer at home with ink in it that can actually print? Very few. But that's the way it was. In fact, that's the way it is with some credit unions. And we need you to print off your bank statements. It could take Mikey a few days to print it. He eventually drops it in. And then Johnny has to sit down and he has to figure out, well, what's Mikey like from a financial perspective? And he's looking at pages and pages and pages of bank statements. He's typically trying to pull out, keywords like, is Mikey gambling? Is there petty power there? Or is there suspicious transactions? And he is an individual trying to paint a picture. We're 6 days in. Johnny decides that Mikey's good for the money, and he gives him a call. And there's a manual EFT done of €2,000. And hey presto, we're nearly up to 2 weeks. In fact, we're past 2 weeks. And that would be fair to say is how it still is with some credit unions, especially the smaller ones. That was okay a few years ago. But I heard somebody recently tell me that they got a loan in Revolut turned around in something like 20 minutes for €2,000. So moving on, Mikey books his holiday. The AI journey today. We have done great progress online with mobile apps, so a lot of loan applications now coming on mobile or web, about 60% of them. But there's still a fair few people that like to go into branch and they're pretty much filling out the same form. And we take in that data and we fire it into our decisioning engine, which comprises of 4 pillars. The central credit registry, which is mandatory for all loan applications over €2,000 in Ireland, and indeed most credit unions will run a CCR check on you for over 500. That data can be pulled for each individual in this room. I don't know if you're all aware, but you can actually write to the Central Credit Registry and request a copy of your own CCR data. Well worth doing, because it's used by a lot of financial institutions, in fact all, to paint a picture of, do you have any debts? Do you have any mortgages? Do you have any credit cards that you haven't paid off? So on. We don't do the bank statements printer malarkey anymore. We bring people on an open banking journey. And I heard Elizabeth speak about open banking yesterday. It's quite simple. You just start from your loan application and you go to a landing page and you can give consent to for the credit union to access your transactional data from Bank of Ireland, from AIB, from Revolut, from whoever. And that data can come into our decisioning system. Some procedural underwriting rules. We've got about 60 of them in our loan decisioning system at the moment. Very simple ones like, is applicant age under 18? If yes, stop, so on. It just clatters down through the rules. And finally, our AI engine. And that AI engine runs 2 stories based on the historical loan book, which doesn't contain any PII data, any bias data. We asked that AI engine 2 questions. What are the chances of Mikey's loan going into arrears? And based on what you know, which is the historical loan data, which was previously approved by humans, would you approve or deny this loan? And that will come back and give a certain score. At this stage, we're 2 minutes. This takes around 2 minutes to run. Once we get a member to give open banking consent on the journey, and it's done. And Johnny clicks OK. The human in the loop, he will look at it. There's been some talk today about, is it a human in the loop or is it just a human in the loop glancing at something? The Credit Union Act actually states that a human in a credit union has to approve the loan, so we have to have the human in the loop. But typically, we are seeing loan approvals in about 5 minutes, which is pretty good compared to the fintechs and the Revoluts. Any questions so far? No. Mikey gets an SMS and he books his holiday. He's gone. And I suppose that's the speed that people expect things to happen today. You wouldn't expect this kind of tech to be coming into credit unions, but it's there and it's getting better, especially the AI side of things. Where are we going with this? Increasingly, explainability, auditability, bias testing. We're coming under scrutiny. Every credit union has a GPO type officer, and the central bank will probe and look at our audits. It's important to have an AI system that is able to stand up to scrutiny. We're on, I would call it an enterprise level AI system, and it is able to do it. The human in the loop is here to stay. I can't see it going anytime soon. There's legislation that prevents us from not having a human in the loop. And I think it's going to stay. We'd love to data pool. We'd love to make our data sets bigger. Again, there's some central bank regulations around that, but we're working towards it. And in fairness, the central bank have been very, very good to us, and they do understand that, you know, times are changing, and they're up for the change as well. Bringing AI to the customer is something we'll start to look at. If you go into Kerry Credit Union, it's what, 12:10 right now. If you went to the main branch in Tralee, you'll find it's pretty busy. It's really busy. If you talk to the 8 people that answer the phones in Kerry Credit Union, they're very busy. They get a lot of calls. People like to share their financial woes, their financial journeys. That's why they like the credit unions. They're typically ring about savings, about opening accounts, about dormant accounts, about getting loans. It could be any number of things. But I think because of the fact that a lot of the banks have taken people away from the desks, the credit unions have taken up that slack. And it's taking a lot of resources for the credit unions to keep that going. Metamo has recently launched an initiative called CU Tech, which is bringing together our member credit unions, of which there's about 16 and a few more that are going to join us on the journey. And it is going to accelerate the adoption of technology in the credit union space. It's going to move some legal contracts from core credit unions, individual credit unions, up into the CU Tech realm. It's going to free the credit unions to do what they do best, which is community lending. And the CU Tech construct will manage the life cycle of contracts with, say, core providers, product delivery, opening up of APIs and all that good stuff. So we're hoping it's going to accelerate the sector. I'm going to go back a little bit about bringing AI to the customer. And I'm going to give you a quick demo. We don't have coders, data scientists, AI people. We have some partner companies that we partner with. One in particular have recently completed a little bit of work where we have bought another enterprise AI engine and put a voice front end in front of it. And we had a number of challenges specifically around latency. So if you look at, pick your AI engine, ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever it is, if you ask that a complicated question, you know, it typically says thinking or give me a minute or whatever. That doesn't translate into the phone world. You can't just have long silences, but it's something that we've solved for This demo is about bringing AI to the disorganized customer, not just a customer. And the customer is me, and I'm talking to an AI bot, but I don't have my ducks in a row. So I'll let you listen to it and see what you think. It's about 4.5 minutes, but there's some interesting stuff happening in it.
I'm Simon, the Savvy Credit Union AI assistant, and I'm here to help you with any questions you've got. What can I do for you today?
Hi Simon, my name is Micheal, and I'm a member of Savvy Credit Union. I'm thinking of buying a new car, Simon, and I was wondering if I can get a car loan for, say, €10,000.
Ah, lovely to meet you, Micheal. Let's look into that car loan for you.
Excuse
You
me.
can check the details and see what the monthly payments might be. How long were you thinking of repaying it over? Maybe a few years?
Jesus, Simon, I hadn't thought of that. 5 years, I'd say.
Right. 5 years it is. I'll go ahead and work out the details of a €10,000 car loan over 5 years. I'm checking that now. All right, Micheal. For a €10,000 car loan over 5 years, your monthly repayment would be about €200.38. The total amount you'd pay back is roughly $12,022.
Simon, stop. Hold on. That's a bit too expensive. Can we change it to 8 years?
Ah, stretching it out a bit. Not a bother. Let's see what the numbers look like for 8 years. I'll check that now. Right. Over 8 years, the monthly payment would be about €138.84. The total you'd pay back is around $13,328.52, with about $3,328.52 in interest. So the monthly payments are lower, but you'll pay more interest overall. You can apply anytime online or in the Savvy app.
Jesus, thanks, Simon. That'll go a long way towards my new EV electric car.
Ah, brilliant stuff. A new EV, is it? Now we also offer a green car loan for electric or hybrid vehicles at a lower rate. Would you like me to check that option for you as well?
Jesus, yeah, absolutely.
Grand. I'll check the numbers for the green loan on that €10,000 amount over 8 years. I'm checking that now. Now, for the green loan, your monthly payment would be around €128.99. And the total you'd pay back is about €12,383.35. That's less interest overall compared to the regular car loan. It's a great option for your new EV, so you've got a lower rate to go with your eco-friendly choice.
Very good. Do you think I can afford that with my current credit union account, Simon?
We can check that for you, Micheal. I'll just need to verify your membership by using your member number and a one-time password from your Savvy mobile app. Do you have those handy?
Yeah, sure. My member number is 123456 and my OTP is 123456.
Very secure.
Got it. Let me authenticate you now with that member number and OTP. All right, Micheal. Here's what I'm seeing. Based on your current profile, you're eligible for a loan up to about €7,000 right now, not the full 10,000. The main reason is that the requested amount is a bit higher than the maximum you're currently eligible for. We could look at adjusting the amount or exploring other options.
Yeah, I think I have another loan, Simon.
Ah, that could explain the limit. We could look into options like adjusting the loan amount or even considering a top-up on an existing loan. If you want to chat through any adjustments or details, just let me know.
Yeah, can you check my current loan?
I can definitely help with that. Let me pull up the details of your most recent transactions and your current loan status. I've got your recent transactions here, but they don't show the loan details directly. You'll likely have an active loan impacting your eligibility. We can explore a top-up or check your exact loan balance if you'd like. Would you like to know the total remaining balance on your current loan?
Yeah, I think I have an idea, but you might tell me again.
Right. Here's what I'm seeing. Your current loan balance is about €18,500 remaining on a personal loan. Your monthly repayment on that is around €400.76. So that's the current loan situation. We could explore adjusting a new loan amount or looking into a top-up on the existing loan if that suits you.
is all getting a bit complicated, Simon. I think I might talk to somebody inside in Savvy. Could I get a call back from somebody?
Of course, Micheal. I'll set that up for you. Let me take down your phone number and let the team know what you need help with. What's the best number to reach you on?
I said try my mobile. It's 087 658 4458.
All set. Micheal, a team member will give you a call back within about 2 hours during business hours. Keep an eye on your phone, and your reference number for the request is 516A8C59. If you need anything else while you're waiting, just shout.
No, that's all good. Thanks a million, Simon.
You're very welcome, Micheal. Glad I could help. Take care and best of luck with the new car.
Now, what do you make of that?
Is Simon based on Michael Flatley?
Yeah, so I was a disorganized customer. I had a clue. Right? I never gave the term of the loan to start. I just said, I'm thinking of getting a loan. And this is typical of the calls and the interactions that credit unions have today. But you see the way I was able to stretch it from 5 years to 8 years. It kind of brought me on the journey. Twigged that a lot of credit unions would have a green loan. It twigged that I was buying an electric vehicle. But more interestingly, what's happening there is the AI engine as being married up to the core banking system through APIs. Now, we mocked the APIs in this case, but it was able to retrieve the loan products from the core banking system and say, we have a car loan at this APR, we have a green loan at this APR. You also saw that in action. I was able to log in. Okay, password 123456. It's not very secure, but we can now start to bring people on an authentication journey and voice. Now, we're not going to put this into production tomorrow, but it will be in production probably in the next 6 months. Probably do it after 5 o'clock when people are not on the phones in the credit unions. But somebody made a comment there either today or yesterday about how this thing is moving so fast. Yeah, it's a bit rough around the edges today. It'll be better next week. It'll be better the week after. This whole landscape is moving very quickly. And finally, I got tired. You know, I'm confused. Can I talk to somebody? And that's one of the unique selling points of the credit union sector, and that you can actually talk to the human. On the other end, the people in the lending department would get a mail saying, will you give me a call back? Here's his reference. And they can see the full transcript of the call. Any questions?
What model is behind your chatbot there?
I can't tell you. Otherwise I'd have to kill you.
Are you looking?
It's one of the big commercial models.
Are you looking to deploy that to other banks or small financial institutions other than the credit union?
Not at present. Look, this is just off the hopper. This was released. The coding was completed on this yesterday. I did it in one take. This hasn't been edited.
Oh, not this in particular, but in general. Like, are you working with other people other than the credit union?
No, it's just the credit union.
Right.
Yeah.
But how are you verifying your vendors? Because you said that you were using a couple of different people for your LMN, for you're using someone for the voice. How are you verifying them?
This is in the lab at the moment. If this goes into production, it'll have to be verified. It'll have to be a
I know, but
GPIA assessment. And
do you not tell them that you need to get your certification in order because we want to go into production in 6 months' time? So I want you to have
this particular provider is certified.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
With what? Just out of interest.
I'd have to check and get back to you. Okay, but I know that they're already in the UK financial services market.
Okay.
Providing enterprise solutions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think that'll be a huge addition to at a consumer level, because I was one of the more retail banks, but the fear of rejection is one of the biggest reasons people don't want to talk to you or engage for a loan.
Yeah.
And I think by using it and knowing that you're not talking with Mary, who you do know in the credit union, and knowing that I've got the loan right, haven't got the loan, I'll now speak to you when it says, look, you're good for the 7K, so I'm happy to engage. But that fear of rejection will actually bring people to the table, I think, for the
Well, one of the messaging that credit unions would often give is like automated systems, especially credit unions sector, are not going to reject. They're going to refer you to a human.
Nice, easy question, Micheal, and great presentation. But does Fexco have a naming strategy? Like there was Taxamo and now Metamo. Is that deliberate or just my coincidence?
It's just the O's in Kerry, really. There was Taximo. Not many people still remember that, but I do, yeah.
This one question from Louise.
And do you worry that some of the, like the conversational piece, like for example, you were talking about the EV car, that a human wouldn't really, like, you know, you try to impress somebody with chit chat, like, oh, my green car, that they just wouldn't bring that up if it was an AI, because why would they bother? They're not trying to impress a person. They're not really going to speak to them in the same way.
No,
You know, because
they're not.
so that those small things that come up where the human's able to say, well, actually, you've mentioned this because we're chit chatting, and now I have something to, you know, I can read that and redirect it. But it's not going to be the same, that there's going to be something lost.
It's never going to be the same as a human. It's never going to be the same. But I suppose this is not an AI engine that has the internet as its data set. It has certain attributes of a credit union. It knows about loan products. That's all it knows. It's a closed AI data set as such. Tightly controlled and audited by that. It would have. That's where it picked up on the green law.
But you wouldn't have, a person like you wouldn't be trying to chit chat with a computer. You know, like you chit chat with people because you want to tell them your news and stuff.
We have some text-based credit union chatbots on our member credit unions, and I know of at least three credit unions that people come in to talk to that chatbot every evening.
I brought in chatbots to an insurance company in 2018, and I read through thousands of chat, and for the most part, they speak to them like chatbot. But they were on computers, maybe it'd be different.
Yeah, I think it's changing. I think the next generation don't see a problem engaging with chatbots. There's one credit union in particular. There's 3 different people that come and talk to that chatbot regularly. Just about non-credit union stuff. And I haven't read the thousands, but we actually run AI over the chat logs.
My question is, you presented at the start of your presentation, your unique selling point was humans. And I'm just wondering, are you shooting yourself in the foot? Like when I worked in the newspaper industry, and they spent a lot of money making PDF versions of the print newspaper where you could do the crossword interactive.
Yeah.
And that was a bit of a fail. And I just wonder, is that like, is it in that same vein?
I'm sorry, guys, I'm going to have to cut it now because we're going to have a very quick comfort break, and then we're going to be back in the room in another 10 minutes. So if we can take this out into the cloud space. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. We're on the last leg. Can you believe the second day is absolutely flying? I'm delighted to introduce RDI Hub member Sudha Alagappan. She is the founder and CEO of Neural BI. And Neural BI is a no-code test automation and fairness assurance platform dedicated to advancing ethical, transparent, and reliable AI in real-world applications. Sudha, the floor is yours.
So good afternoon, everybody. How are you all? Head and watered. Ready? Right. So, AI bias in finance. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sudha Alagappan, founder and CEO of Neural BI. We do AI assurance and bias mitigation platform testing. Also, we do AI safety for students in schools in Kerry. So when Kerry mentioned AI bias in finance, the one thing that came to my mind is pineapple in pizza. How many of you like pineapple in pizza? Don't get offended. For people like me, you know, normal or abnormal, who don't like pineapple in pizza, what we do? Pick it up and put it down so we can eat, yeah? That's what we're going to do. Pick out the bias in finance and eat the pizza. Right, I know you all been reading about EU AI, caring about EU AI, by now bored of EU AI, yeah? Right, EU AI, what's at stake for finance? What's at stake for finance? What do you think? You see here?
Reputation.
Reputation, yeah. More than. Fine. Fine. Yes.
Bottom line. Bottom line.
Yeah. All these answers are right. Prohibited AI practices. There are certain prohibited AI practices. Like you can't do social scoring of your consumers, customers, users. You cannot do prediction of criminal offenses that the customers will do, or you cannot do manipulative profiling of customers using your AI models. These are considered prohibited AI practices for fintech, for any organizations, in especially fintech. The fines are heavy, up to 35 million euros, or up to 7% of global turnover, whichever is higher, like the bank always is, whichever is higher, yeah, that applies. High risk violations. If you are doing, if the fintech organizations or bank are doing any of the high risk violations, first of all, what's high risk violations? Mainly two things, credit scoring and fraud detection are allowed, but they are considered high risk, they are placed under high risk category according to EU Act. So if there is any non-compliance with respect to these high risk categories, there is a fine of about 15 million euro or about global 3% turnover. Right, I'm not doing any prohibited AI practices and we don't do any violations. Am I free of fines? Yes or no? If you are having a false, misleading, or incomplete compliance audit document, you could still be fined 1% of turnover, global turnover of your company, or 7.5 million euros. That's a lot of money, yeah? Okay, AI bias in finance, key risks to watch. So what should we watch? What do you think we should watch when it comes to fintech? We do lending, fintech, bank, credit unions. I'm searching for my phone. Lending, credit scoring, and fraud detection. Basically, that's what the financial institutions do, like bank, credit unions, or even the other fintech organizations. That's for a basic usage of AI model. And what can be a risk? What could be a risk? It's speeding up the process, right? Using an AI model, and like we saw, it can do the credit scoring, it can approve the loan in few minutes. How can it be a risk? Anybody? How do you think using an AI model to speed up your process can actually become a risk?
That is incorrect.
If the data is incorrect, exactly.
The outcomes are biased.
Excellent. The outcomes are biased. Let's go one step further back. The AI models that are used by financial institutions to speed up their processes come with something called as algorithmic bias. These are unintentional algorithmic bias. Every data set that is trained has some kind of bias attached to it, right? If the data set is not debiased or not bias detected and mitigated, the outcome that your financial institution is giving, like a loan approval, loan rejection, mortgage approval or rejection in the case, taking care of your credit score, could all be biased. What can happen? Okay, it's a simple error. There was some glitch, some bias in the system. So what? Some loans got rejected. It's no more a software glitch, or it's no more a software error or a technical glitch. When a loan application gets rejected, or in some cases when a job application gets rejected, or a mortgage gets rejected, what happens? It's no more just a software error, yeah? It impacts the livelihood of the consumers. It affects the livelihood of the users, impacts them directly, or in a case when you are denied application, denied to admission to an university or a job application, it directly affects the consumer. I'm not saying the banks put intentional bias into it. The AI model comes with bias, and the risk is heavier. That is why EU AI brings in mandatory bias monitoring, bias mitigation. It's mandatory under EU AI Act. And there is a new regulation coming up, that is ISO IEC 12791, which is exclusively for bias mitigation. Fraud detection. Fraud detection is allowed, but it's put under high risk category because it's not allowed to profile a set of customers from a particular area or a zip code and profile the frauds or potential fraud or anything. Manipulative profiling or potential criminal offense profiling, that are all prohibited and high risk categories. So these are the risks to watch when it comes to fintech. Right. So has anything been done about it? Has anybody got fined? There are many cases. I'll name a few here. AI bias real world legal consequences. In 2025, this is in around July 2025, Massachusetts lender faced a 2.5 million dollar fine for a biased student loan approval. This is significant how regulatory and reputational risk can happen in a financial system. The 2.5 million euro can be earned. But the reputation that is done, we are sitting in Kerry in Ireland and talking about that company. Yeah, I left out the company, the name of the institution, but I know it, like it's in the news all over. The 2.5 million is easy to recover for a bank or a financial institution or a fintech or a credit union even in Ireland. But that name, the brand reputation that is damaged, it's really hard to come back. It's gone. Reputational risk, brand damage once done in a fintech especially. The customers start losing. This did not happen in day one, it's not one case. It's like when a loan gets rejected, the transparent reasons are not given, it gets built up, and over a period of time, they lose the brand name. Another example from a different sector, in this case, a HR tech or a recruitment tech. In 2024, Workday was sued. I'm sure you must have all read about it in LinkedIn. How many of you heard about the Workday class action lawsuit? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Right. What happened in Workday was, have you all used Workday? Has here anybody who has not known about Workday? Workday is this hiring platform, and they use the AI model to hire, right? To filter and hire and proceed them to the next level or whatever. It was found that their AI model deliberately rejects people or applicants who are aged above 40. Anybody aged above 40, no matter the qualification, no matter the job title, rejected. So some people who continuously saw this rejection, even not going to the next level at all, you apply, they tried to apply at 11 o'clock in the night, 11:03 rejection. So they came together and filed a case, which turned into a class action lawsuit actually. And the Workday actually defended it like any company would do. They went and defended it saying, oh, it's a new AI model error. No. If the AI model was not in place, somebody in your company would be doing that, yeah? So you are liable, you are accountable. If you are implementing some process and serving your customers using AI model, you are accountable for it. You cannot go and say, oh, it's a software error. So the verdict was really bad for Workday. They have to sort out each and every rejected application. Imagine the amount of money, and the reputation is gone. Like I said, for that company, we are sitting here in Ireland, in County Kerry, in RDI Hub, and talking about Workday's class action lawsuit. That brand image, that's totally gone. It's really difficult to build the brand image once it's gone like that from ground up. So the reason why I'm quoting that in a fintech is, this job application was rejected on the basis of age bias. It still applies to fintech also. If ever a loan application or a mortgage application or any application gets rejected only particularly on the basis of gender or age bias, this Workday could be replaced by a fintech company, So the problem is the same. Right. Get you enough with the fines, risks, class action lawsuit. Can we do something about it? Is there anything we can do about it? Yes. What do you think we can do?
Use scientific data to mitigate the risk, for number 95% and 99%.
Yeah. We can mitigate data, but how do we always solve the problem? At first step, number 1, we identify the problem. So in any case that touches data, step 1, talk to the data first. Every data model, audit your data, because the problem starts with the data. Don't start detecting bias in the process. Don't start after the launch. Start with data auditing. Step number 1: audit your data, audit your model, data architecture, your database flow, your workflows. Start with your data auditing. Step number 1, and then once that's done, fairness analytics. I'm sure you must have all heard about all the KPI dashboards. You will all be involved in KPI dashboards. Power BI dashboards, performance dashboards. It's high time you implement, if you are using an AI model in your company or AI process in your company or your organization, it's high time you implement something called as fairness analytics. How fair is your data set that you're using to train your own data model? The AI model that you're using to do hiring, lending, all the processes, how fair it is. What are the parameters you are considering? Are you looking into any demographic parity? Is your data set diverse enough? Is it representing all the groups? Does it have equal opportunity? You know, how fair is your data? If you're using an AI model or an AI process, have a fairness analytics dashboard. That's step number 2. Step number 3, conduct independent algorithmic audits. We always say an extra pair of eyes is good, yeah? Have your own internal team tested, no problem, but always have it tested by an independent algorithm auditors. Why I'm saying algorithmic audit, we have to catch it here at the algorithmic level, at the design level, because in any software development lifecycle, the sooner you catch the bug, it's easier to fix. Rather than you catch it at the end during the production or release, it's very expensive to fix it, rather than you catch it during analysis and design or an algorithmic stage. So do an audit here at an algorithmic stage. So that will be your step number 3. Number 4, integrate bias detection tools into your whole software lifecycle workflow, starting with analysis, design, development, testing, and release. You know, integrate a bias detection tool and continuous bias monitoring. As per EU AI, the continuous bias monitoring is mandatory. You're supposed to do a bias monitoring of your AI models. So these are the 5 steps. So if I have done all this, have I ticked the box? Yes, to a certain limit. You will also have to do something called as bias mitigation. So once you have identified your bias, we have identified the problem, we have tested and we have put in fairness analytics in place. I have done with my independent algorithmic audits. I have integrated bias detection tools, continuously monitoring bias, all done. What's missing? We identified the bias, but we have to mitigate the bias. Yeah? Control. Control and solve the bias. So that stuff is called the bias mitigation. There are 3 types of bias mitigation processes. One is in-processing and post-processing. In pre-processing, we look into the data set and we mitigate the bias. In processing, we look into the algorithmic level and do the in-processing. For post-processing, we take the output of your AI models and mitigate the bias. So once detection is done, mitigation is done, then you can safely say you are done with 1 line of that. The 3rd line is done, right? So that brings us to the slide, regulator readiness. What do you mean by regulator readiness? Anyone? Ready for approval? Go to market, yeah. Compliant, EUAI, GDPR, all the 172, whatever the numbers are. I'm not telling all the numbers right. Regulator readiness. Regulator readiness is not just compliance. It's making sure we inbuild fairness and unbiased systems from day 1. You know, don't look at bias or fairness after launching your product. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be painful to redo it from step 1. Start with inheriting fairness into your solution from the design stage itself. If not from the data stage, start with the design stage. Go along the process of inbuilding fairness into your solutions. So these are the obligations the fintech companies have. Number 1 is AI literacy across the organization. You're supposed to give AI literacy across the organization for all your staff. So if you are implementing an AI model or an AI process, everybody in your team and who's not involved as well in your organization, all the employees must know what this AI model is doing, what are these AI processes are following, what data you're inputting, what output you're getting, even at a basic level, they should have an idea. So that's AI literacy. Map high-risk AI systems, especially if you are fintech, if you are involved in biometrics, or if you are dealing with student data, any high-risk credit scoring, fraud detection, any high-risk AI systems, map with your policies, how you are implementing it, what are the outcomes, who are you serving, what the customers benefit from it, map everything, okay? Continuous data and bias audits. I think we're done with the third step, yeah? We did the bias detection and mitigation, so we're done with that. Continuous. It's not a one-time thing. Don't think that you do bias mitigation once and you're done with it. No, the UAI says do continuous bias mitigation because the data is not fixed. Your data changes every nanosecond and your data set changes every minute. So continuous, at least do it for a quarterly. AI risk management frameworks. Like I mentioned before, AI risk management frameworks please don't start during production or launch. Start at analysis design stage itself and have it parallel to your software development lifecycle, be it fintech, HR tech, tech, whatever your sector is. Have it parallel. Run it parallel from analysis, design stage till your release stage, and have a human feedback loop and monitor it, right? So you don't get sued like you mentioned, or end up in a heavy fine. It's actually easy to do it this way rather than getting, fined and starting to do it from there. Refactoring is really difficult rather than inbuilding in the step one. So that's AI risk management. Finally, transparent AI documentation. What do you mean by transparent AI documentation? Right from what trainings you are giving to your staff, what kind of AI models you're using, what kind of LLMs you're using. Do you have a RAG model or are you using local AI server? Everything. How, if you're rejecting a customer, on what parameters you're rejecting the application, what variables you're feeding into it, what kind of parity you're considering. Are you using in-processing or pre-processing or everything? What kind of bias mitigation you're putting into place? What are the algorithms you're using? Everything. Starting from AI literacy. Oh, we gave 2 trainings. No, what trainings you gave? Who attended? All of that. As everybody AI literate in your company, because you are delivering something as an AI model. So everybody in your team literate, are they aware of what they're doing? Everything. That's transparent AI documentation. Just keep in mind, if you don't have enough documentation, what's all the fines? Something in million, yeah? So that's actually not but last the least. Transparent AI documentation is a very must if you want to be really compliant with the act. Right. So any questions so far? I'm aware I speak a little fast, but yeah. What do we do at Neural BI? Just because I spoke about pineapple in the pizza, really, we don't sell pizzas. I do AI assurance and bias mitigation. Our core product is AI assurance and bias mitigation. We do AI discovery and AI compliance risk audits. And we do AI bias detection and continuous bias monitoring for fintech, HR tech, and edtech clients. And we have our proprietary Neural BI platform to do bias mitigation. So if anyone wants to talk about bias, anything, reach out to me. Thank you. And that's the website.
We have time for one quick question. Does anybody have a question for Sudha? Yeah, 1 second. Just wait for the microphone so the online people can hear us.
When we think about the European legislation and having certain things that are in there like bias and having data to show whether a person is male or female, does that bring down the overall accuracy of what you're trying to achieve and kind of like having one pool of people cross-subsidize another pool of people? Because if we think of the example of the car insurance earlier, we know that young male drivers are the worst drivers, are involved in the most accidents. So then everybody else is paying for that in their insurance premiums. If you're an insurance company, you have to implement that, or can you ignore it and just cherry pick what you want to ensure if you're not leveraging AI versus leveraging AI? Is that a change? Has that changed over time? Because, or do the younger drivers still play the most money?
The younger drivers still pay the most money, but when you do an AI model, the AI model will take this data, what you just mentioned, it will take this data and it will amplify it. Any bias towards younger drivers or older drivers that are taken by the AI model, and what AI model does it best, amplifies it. So in future, if you don't put a bias testing to it, any young driver who is even having a good record is going to pay more insurance money to instead of the normal money they should be actually paying. Yeah, so it has to be tested.
Hey guys, just gonna park it there. Thanks very much, Sudha. Appreciate it. Okay, folks, next we're going to be joined by Dr. Maria Moloney, who is the head of research at Privacy Engine. And she's going to talk to us about assessing AI and data production expertise in academia and the financial services sector, insights and recommendations for AI skills development. So, Dr. Moloney, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Am I clear?
Yes, you're perfect. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Great. I'll just share my slides. Sorry, get this. The wrong. Yeah, here we are. So, hello everybody. Thank you for inviting me today to give my talk. I hope my presentation is going to be interesting to you. It's called "When AI Meets GDPR: The Hidden Security Risks." So maybe I should have renamed it and said "When AI Does Not Meet GDPR: What Are the Hidden Security Risks in That?" So this piece of research came out of the fact that I was working with Professor Karl Muckley in UCD back in 2023, and we got it published in the Journal of Financial Transformation as well. I was working with another professor as well in UCD, Professor Valerio Potti. So I just want to give you a little bit of background before I get into the research. I think a lot of you know that I work with a colleague of yours in Fexco, Jared Brown. So we're both part of the Confederation of Data Protection Organizations that's in Brussels. He is the chair of the AI working group for SEDPO, and I'm his vice chair. So we've done a lot of work around the EU AI Act in that working group. I did my PhD in Trinity, and that's quite some time ago. I won't tell you when I graduated because I'll be showing my age. But it was in data protection before the GDPR actually ever came in. So my PhD was in privacy by design, but it was more based on Anne Cavoukian's privacy by design as opposed to the data protection privacy by design that came in with GDPR. I've done some teaching in Trinity. I did some teaching in UCD, and I'm currently the Chief Privacy Officer for a doctoral network that's being funded under Horizon Europe. And I did my Fulbright in Georgia State University in America. But what I really want to talk about today and to give you the background of this research is when I was working for a cost action from 2020 to 2024. And for those of you that don't know what a cost action is, it stands for, so COST stands for Cooperation in Science and Technology. And it's funded by Horizon Europe, but our one was funded by Horizon 2020 back in 2020. And basically you get funding for creating a research network and collaboration across Europe. So the more researchers you can get into your project, the more successful you're seen to be. And at the end of the 4 years, we had over 300 researchers across academia and in industry. And our topic of choice was fintech and artificial intelligence in finance. Okay, so that's the background to this. So I just want to introduce my presentation. I'm breaking it into 3 parts. I'll talk about the research that I got published in 2023. Because it's 2 years old, I'll now relate it to where we are in terms of AI in 2025. And then hopefully, and if you're willing, we can have a nice discussion around how do we go from here in terms of training and academia and training the new experts coming up and the existing experts in the financial industry. So I want to talk about a survey that I did when I was the Chief Privacy Officer for the cost action that lasted for 4 years. Around 2021, 2022, the cost action would organize lots of conferences and lots of visiting positions for people to actually collaborate and share their research and so on. And I noticed that when I was in these conferences, there was a little bit of a reluctance to talk about GDPR, and I kind of wanted to understand what exactly that was. I remember being at a dinner one time and everybody wanted to take a picture. There was like 20 of us or 25 of us there. And they said at the end of the night, come on, let's take a picture. And then the head of the actual cost action was like, no, Maria's here. And so I was like, it's okay to take a photograph, as long as you have consent and so on. So there was a little bit of fear around the GDPR. And so I kind of started to think it's important that if these people are developing AI systems, that they know a lot about the GDPR. So me and Carl Buckley and Valerio Putti in UCD came together and we put together a survey. And over the winter of 2022-2023, we rolled out the survey to all the participants in the network, and we really asked them to kind of, spend 15 minutes filling in the survey. Now, as you know, it's not that easy to get people to do surveys because they're bombarded with especially in the research arena, everybody wants to get your opinion. So we tried and we got over 100 responses, but when we cleaned up the data, it was only 89 participants that we could actually use. So it was a small sample size. But the people that responded were, spanned across 23 countries, not only in Europe, but also outside of Europe. So I think that was good and representative of the actual network. And again, so the motivation for this was the fact that people were reticent to talk to me about the GDPR, but also during conversations, I picked up that these were developers of AI systems. And they would talk about, what kind of variables they would use when they were developing their models, and there was no real kind of reflection on security or GDPR. I was picking that up, and as well in fintech, Europe prides itself in being quite competitive in the fintech arena, and the business model that they were focusing on was AI first. And so AI first means, the business model will not function without the use of AI. That's basically what it is. So a big emphasis on developing AI and a big emphasis on, making fintech, all about using AI systems. So that was really kind of the core of the project. But as well, it was my job to make sure that, these algorithms were being developed with the GDPR in mind and with security in mind. So the findings, we asked about these developers. We asked them if they knew about GDPR. A lot of them did know about GDPR. They knew less about privacy by design and by default, and as well, they knew less about security by design. They had training in GDPR. A lot of them, I think over 50% of them, had training in GDPR, but they didn't have specific training or GDPR training specific to, GDPR and how it applies to AI systems. And as well, another thing that we asked was, have you experienced a breach, or has your organization experienced a breach in the last 12 months? And would you believe 100% of the respondents said no, they hadn't experienced a breach, or their organization hadn't experienced a breach. Now that would conflict with the stats that are out in the media, because most financial institutions are under constant attack by adversaries. So there's something going on there as well. So I just want to show you a little table that we put together just to show the difference in the level of training that these very highly skilled financial experts and AI developers had when it came to GDPR. So we asked them if they had any knowledge of GDPR, and some of them said they did, and some of them said they didn't. The ones that said they had knowledge of GDPR, in academia, it was only 37% that said they had knowledge. In industry, it was over 54%. But that drops dramatically when we asked, did you have training in GDPR for, so that you can use AI properly or you can develop AI properly? And you can see there, even with the people that didn't say they knew the GDPR, there's no kind of AI specific GDPR training happening, or there wasn't back in 2023 anyway. So that was a significant finding. So why does this matter? Like, why does security matter? Why did I even bother to do this survey? So if any of you know anything about security, the three main principles of security is ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information, and especially personal information. Confidentiality means that, the data is protected when it needs to be protected. Integrity means that it hasn't been changed in any way. It hasn't been changed. And availability means that it's available whenever you need for the information to be available. There's no point having a security system so secure that you can't actually reach the data when the data is needed. There's been a few cases as well in the Court of Justice of the European Union that has shown that now explainability is mandatory for AI systems and security hardening of AI systems. I can mention two, and I'm sure you've heard of these before, but if you haven't, I can explain them later on. The Shufa case of 2023 and the Dunn and Bradstreet case just this year, back in February. These kind of set a precedence for ensuring that explainability is now mandatory to ensure security in AI systems. And as well, historically, even if we don't think about AI systems in the financial industry, historically, security has always been very closely linked to the reputation of financial institutions and the trust that exists between the institutions and their clients. So it's always been really important, but I think it's becoming even more important when we talk about fintech and the prolific use of AI now in 2025. So how can we ensure confidentiality, integrity, and availability by ensuring that these developers of AI systems know the GDPR and know about explainable AI? Well, I think we have two very good tools. We have one good tool that we've been using with the GDPR since it came into effect, but we're getting another good tool, I think, with the EU AI Act. So the Data Protection Impact Assessment has been very effective in really doing an investigation of technology and what are the potential harms that could come about as a result of deploying technology. But fundamental rights impact assessments as well are part of the EU AI Act now coming in, and they will be used with public bodies that use high-risk systems in certain situations, and even for private companies that provide public services will have to do free as what we call. So I think a combination of those two assessments will really kind of set us up for, if they're used properly, they'll set us up for ensuring that we avoid individual and societal harms. And they address all three of the principles: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Explainable AI as well reduces risks. We know that. It helps to identify biases. It reduces opaqueness of the algorithms, and as well, by its very definition, it strengthens weak oversight. and it speaks to integrity of the data, because if you don't understand how the data is being manipulated in an AI system, you can't guarantee its integrity. Okay. And again, the GDPR always has given us the right to an explanation. So you're entitled, if your personal data is being used by a financial institution and they're using it with an AI system, you are entitled to understand what data they're using and how they're using it. So that speaks to availability. Okay. Another reason why it's now very important, and our previous speaker spoke about, mentioned this as well, is that AI literacy since February is now an obligation under the EU AI Act. Okay. Article 4 gives a very expansive, in my opinion, definition of what AI literacy is. And it doesn't just apply to the employees, it applies to your contractors, it applies to anybody that you interact with and that interacts with AI systems. So that's kind of, something that kind of needs to be thought about. You have a grace period because I think they're going to be enforcing AI literacy from the 3rd of August 2026. But there is the AI office are actually really helpful in this regard, in that they have put together what they call an AI pact. And that's they've got a number of kind of very large multinationals to sign this pact. And it's a commitment to work together to, figure out what their obligations are under this whole idea of AI literacy. And you can join the AI Pact and they would give you access to a living repository of best practices. So there is help out there. And as well, there's a nice series of webinars. I think there's another webinar coming up at the end of February where they kind of walk you through the next steps or what's coming into effect next. And they explain, what it's all about and what your potential obligations would be. So I would encourage you to just Google the AI Pact and see if there's anything of interest there for you. So for the future. So like I said, my research was conducted in 2023, well, between 22 and 23. We started looking at the findings in the summer of 2023, and we very quickly got it published towards the end in December. And that was just the kind of the time when, general purpose AI was coming on board. There was a much more emphasis on AI, and it's grown exponentially in the last 2 years. So it would be very interesting to understand now where we are at in terms of academic education and security, and is security and GDPR being into the training and education of people that will be working with AI in the future. Be very interesting, and I might try and see if I can roll out the survey again at some stage if I can find the time. But what I think is really important in terms of our undergraduate students and even our master students now that are in college now is that they need to understand, and we need to be teaching them about explainable AI so that they actually become literate in what exactly we mean when we talk about explainable AI, and what should they look for in an AI system to ensure that it's explainable. There are a number of security tools out there as well, and I think maybe they should have some sort of maybe laboratories to learn these tools and understand them. And I think that would go a long way to these young people going into the workforce and being literate and understanding and confident about ensuring that the AI systems that they're working with are in fact secure. Like I said, this would promote transparency and accountability from the ground up, from education going into the workforce. It prepares our young people to ensure that they know and they can identify what a secure system is, what a secure AI system is. So in terms of industry training, I think from the survey, there was a good response to GDPR training, because since 2018, that has been a requirement. But I think what's really important is not just teaching GDPR in a vacuum. It needs to be applied to, people using AI and people developing AI along with the AI Act. So I think they go hand in hand. The GDPR is the foundation upon which the EU AI Act was built. And I think to understand these regulations, you really need to see something practical. You need to see, they need to be applied to the technology that you're using, especially AI systems, because there are certain things in AI system that seem to be contradictory to the GDPR, but in fact they're not. And that needs to be explained to people who are developing and using AI systems. I think a really good way of doing this would be to use real world cases of, breaches that have happened and biases that have happened, and then, understanding those situations and trying to apply them to your current situation. And there's a number of cases of bias cases out there in the financial industry. The big one, and I'm sure you've heard of it, is the Dutch childcare scandal that happened in Holland a few years ago, and it actually brought down the Dutch government in 2021. It was a massive scandal. 26,000 people were affected. So they definitely are out there, and it's just, I think that's the best approach to showing people what the dangers are and applying them to your situation as well. The last thing I think is really important is we understand the risk classification, because the unacceptable risk now is banned. So you don't want to be going off developing an AI system and then realizing, oops, can't use this because it's actually been banned. And as well, it's important to know that if you are using a high risk system, because there are certain obligations as well if you're using a high risk system. And as our previous talker mentioned, that these are very everyday kind of systems as well, that you, like, if you're not thinking, you may not realize that you're actually handling a high risk AI system. So it's important to be aware of those as well. So in conclusion, AI, especially in fintech and finance, of course, the security is critical. It always has been, and it continues to be. And we just need to ensure that security, or the AI systems, get built with security by design and privacy by design, because, like you say, bolting it on afterwards is costly and time consuming. The current training, based on my research in 2023, and again, it was a small sample size and it's 2 years ago, but it did indicate that there is inadequate and inconsistent training out there for AI systems. There were kind of definitely blind spots in terms of breaches and what is a breach, and how do you identify biases, and when do you have to have human oversight, and so on. So they need to be addressed. And basically the bottom line is that we need to kind of come together and figure out the GDPR, the AI Act and security, and then apply them all to our development of AI systems, or even the use of AI systems. So that's me. Micheal Margaret. I meant to mention that I am actually a Kerry woman. I couldn't make it down to Kerry today, unfortunately. I would have loved to, but I'm coming down on Saturday. So
thanks very much, Dr. Moloney. That was a fantastic presentation. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No worries. No worries.
I'm afraid we're not for time, so we don't have time for any questions, but a fantastic presentation, and hope to see you the next time you're down.
That's no problem. Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, the last speaker for our panel discussion, and we're joined in person by Gosia Keating. She's the founder and managing director of KPI Payments, and she's going to talk today about AI in payments, reducing deadlines and boosting approvals. So we're delighted to have her in person.
I'm going to try to be as quick as we can. I know we all want the day to finish a bit earlier, but thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really honored to be invited to this talk. So my name is Gosia Keating, and I'm founder and managing director of KPI Payments, a company that I launched very, very recently, so it's all very new. And today I would like to take you into the world of payments. So the world that we don't usually think about, a lot of people don't think about unless something really goes wrong. And that is the moment when you click pay on a website and your card gets declined. So for a customer on a website trying to purchase the product, it's a frustration. For merchants, it's a lost revenue, and for me, it has been a focus of my career so far. So just a couple of words about myself. So I've been in the payments and analytics industry for about 15 years. And largely that time I spent with Norton Antivirus, which you might be familiar with. So I worked on a number of optimizations there, and I could see that the impact that, the issue that I'm bringing up today was quite huge in terms of business. So 1% authorization rate translated into millions of recovered millions dollars in recovered revenue if you address that kind of gap. I've been also working as a consultant in recent years and for kind of global e-commerce brands. And recently joined the KPI Payments because over the years I really seen that gap of that hasn't been really filled. A lot of times merchants that we worked with would not really pay much attention to their payments and would treat payments like or payments performance like sort of plumbing, that only when something broke they started to look at that. So it was really something that inspired me to address this problem and help merchants to fix that problem and make it, and basically work towards that lost opportunity and that lost revenue that they've been leaving on the table. So this is just a quick view of the e-commerce payment funnel. So you can see that it starts at 100% when the customer clicks buy, and obviously there is some text as they when the transaction gets through all the different checks, all that happens within milliseconds, obviously. So we have checks such as 3D secure authentication, strong customer authentication. We have fraud checks, obviously, and there's also obviously issuer at the end. So the bank will approve or deny the transaction depending on their own risk models. So all in all, around 90% of transactions actually get authorized successfully. So you can see that there is a bit of a gap, 10% of transactions being declined due to all those reasons. And really, that's just like kind of an average rate of for across the different industries and all the aggregated data that I've observed over the years. But obviously it will depend on the merchant, right? So what type of website it is, what type of industries. In my career, I've actually seen merchants when that authorization rate was 85% and lower. So, and often merchants didn't really see it until we really reviewed their payments data and scrutinized it and had a look at what was actually failing, and they were quite shocked to see how much they are losing out and potentially could be recovering. So this is just a quick oversight that really the impact globally is quite huge, and it's quite a big problem that we look at here, that about 10 to 15 actually online transactions fail, and a lot of them, obviously, there are transactions that will fail due to risk reasons that we cannot stop from happening. But there is other declines that could be basically resolved with help of what we've been doing so far. So there is a number of optimizations that happen already, but obviously with use of AI, we can definitely enhance, speed up the process, and improve even further. So again, merchants don't really look at the problems until they see suddenly a decline there, and suddenly there is a problem. Sales team is panicking, retention team look at what's going on, and obviously they try to understand what's happening. That's where we usually would come in and help them uncover the problems. Also, in terms of fraud declines, that's also another point. 1 in 5 of fraud declines are actually false positives. So, it's actually quite the industry, based on industry research, but I've seen this in the industry as well as I work with merchants, that that was the case a lot of the time. That transaction customers that were good customers, legitimate customers, they actually were declined. Let's imagine a situation that you are a loyal shopper, but let's say you go abroad for holidays in Spain and you decided to use a new card. For some merchants, that could mean that your transaction is a lot riskier because suddenly there's a new location, new card, new payment method, and the rules might decline that customer. Obviously, for a customer, it's quite frustrating experience, and I'm sure some of you might have been there in the past. Definitely happened to me. And of course, it could be also declined by your bank, but the fraud rules are at the merchant level because obviously merchants also have to filter transactions for fraud. In terms of why the declines happen, so as we're looking at the funnel, there's definitely been, already those three sort of buckets of drop of funds. So obviously we have the fraud declines, we have the authentication that can cause friction, and some of the transactions can drop off. And then obviously we have issuer declines. So the banks have their own risk models, and will decline transactions depending on their own rules. And these kind of transactions can be split into two buckets. So some of them are hard declines, which are, for example, lost, stolen cards, closed accounts. So these type of declines are pretty much end of the road. If card was stolen, it's most likely a fraud. So we really cannot do much there. But however, there is a big bucket of declines amongst the soft declines that are declines such as insufficient funds, for example. And there is this opportunity that we're creating where we could really tackle those and implement some strategies, optimizations in order to actually save that sale. So just to give an example, so far merchants have been using very fixed rules where obviously if, let's say, card is from a specific country, let's say from Brazil, and if the amount for the product is over 200 euros, then let's say implement stricter rules or maybe reject that transaction. So all those kind of rules still exist today. Obviously, that's how it's being assessed. However, of course, with the AI coming into play, all those rules can be enhanced, and AI models could really quickly predict and look at for those patterns and predict with precision which potential transactions are fraudulent versus good transactions, or which transactions are potentially a failure. So that's something that me as an analyst, I've done a lot of work manually looking at transactions and spotting trends, and very often in kind of reactive ways. So things happened, now I'm looking at them, reviewing it, analyzing it pretty much manually, and seeing those issues and fixing those rules and applying those kind of different strategies. But with help of AI, obviously all of that can be implemented much quicker, and the pattern could be spotted a lot quicker than, let's say, human eye. So that's the power of AI that really can speed up that element. But at the same time, AI models can predict what can happen, so they can then, the models and the system can decide on their own, okay, what are we doing with this transaction way before it fails. So we were trying, instead of reacting, we were trying to be proactive and proactively address that decline. So I'm just looking at the time there. I know we are a bit short on time. So those tactics could be, the system could automatically send that transaction to a different acquirer, for example, or retry that transaction at a different time that it's more likely for that transaction to be successful, or prompt fraud checks immediately, depending on all the learnings and all the predictions that have happened so simultaneously in milliseconds. So today I just wanted to share with you 3 different use cases that I've been looking into, and some of those use cases, I worked before on them, but more a sort of manual way where I had analyzed different sets of data. And with my background analytics, we always look for opportunities. So we always would look at the declines and see what can we do to bring up that authorization rate. So, for example, for the use case of predictive decline recovery, this is actually quite interesting one because I've seen already pieces of software out there that actually do that already. So it's in the past, for example, if you had, let's say you're Netflix and you're trying to renew the subscription every month, obviously, you know, at the moment, Netflix might have set rules. I'm not sure. I'm sure they updated it because they're pretty sophisticated in terms of subscription. But you know, they could have a rule that, okay, let's retry this transaction 2 more times every 2 days or every 3 days, which is a very kind of rigid rule and really not that flexible. So really, it's a hit and miss whether the card actually gets hit and gets successful. With AI, obviously, there's just a world of opportunities to come in and actually use all the data that we have and analyze the historical patterns, but also use all the information that's available, such as, you know, what are the paydays in each country? You know, maybe we should kind of build the cards around those days. What about banks' maintenance windows? Maybe avoid those. Schedule it more on the optimal time, even optimal time of day, week, or month. So all that can happen really, really quickly. And one of the cases that I looked into, there was actually between 20 to 30% more recovery from retries for that given new AI company. They're actually startup that they were able to recover, which is quite interesting. Actually, that startup, they build an app using AI for Stripe merchants. So all the merchants that process transactions with Stripe and have subscription model can actually use that app and plug it into their payments, and that will enhance. So even merchants who today process transactions with Stripe, thinking this is fantastic piece of software, and they are, don't get me wrong, they're really good, but still there is still room to improve. There's still room to grow, basically. So then the second use case is related to fraud, just to bring that in as well. And of course, as I mentioned before, 1 in 5 fraud declines is false decline. So that's a lost revenue. And I actually worked on a project with one of the merchants where we manually had to call back customers that were declined due to manual rules that rejected those customers, but they were actual legitimate customers that they were trying to pay. And unfortunately, they were unlucky enough to be declined due to fraud. But there was an additional revenue that was really, really being lost because of the rules were a little bit too rigid. They weren't flexible. And again, bringing in AI model here and the scoring would really enhance this experience to look for transactions and see, okay, if that transaction looks a little bit different, but it doesn't have to be straight away rejected. Maybe we could look at the shopping patterns, right? What's happening? More detail that is available out there, and we could save that sale. Obviously, that is very important to remember that of course we do want to keep the fraud under control as well. So we have to make sure that that fraud is caught as well. The third use case, and it's kind of closest to my heart, I suppose, me being an analyst in the past, where obviously with the payments data that is underused today, merchants don't really tap into it until it's needed. You know, one of the difficulties is that they don't really have time to dig into that information. A lot of the time, a lot of companies don't even have payments analysts on board or payments manager. So that usually lands under finance manager, for example, and in all the things that they need to do, and you know, they don't really have to do that. They don't have that time to do that. I'm so sorry. I know I'm stuttering a little bit, but what it means is that with AI, there's opportunity to create potentially a software that would enable finance manager to ask question, okay, how many insufficient funds failures did we have yesterday, for example, or you know, how many declines there were yesterday in France, for example. That sort of analytics taken to the next level would be really, really helpful, but not only to tell us the story of what happened, but also predict, look, you should be really looking out, there is a spike in this type of decline and we might do more of that. So I think that's something that I'm sure is definitely coming along the way. Again, in terms of guardrails for AI, it's been said a lot throughout the conference, so I don't really want to repeat myself, of course, but just the 4 core kind of principles. Obviously, data privacy, that was really thoroughly covered already. The fact that AI needs to be explainable, and also in relation to payments, smart retries and fraud balance. That means that we really need to make sure what's been said already, that we understand the rules that we are using, and also there is policies and regulations that we should adhere to. So, for example, we cannot allow AI to retry transactions endlessly, for example, because that's not good customer experience, but it's also against policies and regulations. So we have to keep that intact. There has to be still human sort of factor to verify and make sure that the rules we have in place are understood. So just a closing thought. So in terms of those 3 kind of use cases that I presented to you today, there's of course many more in terms of what else could be done. There could be smart routing, for example, or dynamic customer authentication. There's many other ideas that are done somehow using machine learning today already, but it could be elevated and taken to the next level in the future. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I think we will talk later outside, and feel free to scan my code for LinkedIn, and I would love to connect and have a conversation with you. Even if someone fancies a little chat or a call over the next few weeks, I'll be very happy to connect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a million, Gosia. And as you were saying, we're cut for time, so if you have any questions, Gosia, just after we've had the panel discussion. So up next, we have our panel discussion, and the panel topic is deploying AI for growth, turning innovation into execution. So we've got Karl Aherne, who's the Managing Director of Innovation and Ventures at Fexco. We have Amy Neale, the General Partner at Delta Partners VC. We have Chris Clancy, the Senior Regional Development Executive at Enterprise Ireland, and it's moderated by Gearoid Kearney, the Programs Manager of the RDI.
Hey, Kerry.
Is that okay?
Great. Thank you. So, look, thanks a million, guys, for joining us today. Last part of the AI Summer School, and I think it's something that's top of mind for a lot of companies in the room today around deploying AI within their business. And it's great to have different perspectives, the corporate perspective, the VC perspective, and then from Enterprise Ireland, the supports that are out there. And I think from an Enterprise Ireland perspective, I think a lot of businesses, they do forget them supports, and they forget the things that they can leverage in this era and the stuff that would have been there before as well. So we're joined by Karl Aherne from Fexco, Amy Neale from Delta Partners, and Christina Clancy from Enterprise Ireland. So I might start with yourself, Karl, just in terms of your experience of deploying AI and a lot of experience that you've gathered over the last number of years, but what were them kind of core building blocks in terms of that you need to get in place before deploying AI within Fexco?
Yeah, I think I think the first thing is around executive support, because I know a lot of it is about bottom up, but if you don't have that top level support and really determination to figure out how AI has a role in your business, you're going to find it difficult to get momentum throughout the company. And the challenge with AI is it really is an extinction level event for companies, potentially. Whether you do it, you could screw up and create a very significant problem for your business. And if you don't do it, the market's going to outpace you. So you don't really have a choice, but you have to embrace it. But if you don't embrace it in the right way and with the right determination, with the right rules and approach, you're going to find yourself in hot water very quickly. So, I would say that's the first thing, is that determined support. The second thing is around imagination. And in a corporate environment, one of the biggest challenges is, corporates are designed to eliminate risk. That's what we do. We eliminate risk, and we get a process going, and we rerun that process over and over and over again. AI is about embracing risk in many ways because it's change. And you know, it's really important that companies create the imagination and allow their people to use their imagination and figure out how AI can create value for them personally and for their roles and their functions and the jobs that they have to do. So the imagination piece is really important. There's a couple of others, but I appreciate we want other people to have a have a say as well.
But even on that piece, like I was talking with a company yesterday, Karl, and they have 70 senior leaders across multiple regions throughout the world, and like their biggest dilemma is how do they bring them 70 leaders up to a point where they can ask them questions like, what if we could use AI in that scenario? And what they're finding is that you have a mixed match of curiosity and experience in relation to it, and the people that could provide the most value in the meeting are the ones that maybe aren't talking because they might know what that latest GPT is or the finer details that really doesn't matter to a certain degree. It's the business challenges you need to.
There is a, you know, probably in equal measures, a fear and loathing towards AI. And what we have done is we have undertaken an upskilling program for our entire company. So we did a survey of our entire population, and that survey was to understand where do people see themselves on 5 different levels of AI knowledge and experience. 50% of our people were in level 1 or 2, which is basic. You know, they were either aware or curious, but they'd done very little about it. That's the problem. You know, that is a real problem for us. And I wouldn't say we're unusual in the landscape at all. But now we know that, which is the most important thing. So we then implemented a training program, which is ongoing. We're going to train every single employee who's self-identified as a level 1 or 2 and train them to become a level 3. So once we have that done, about 75–80% of our population then will be level 3 or above. So that puts us then in a much better position where people are able to remove the fear or the loathing, whichever way they were, and equally remove the guilt, because the less you know about AI and the tools, the more guilty you are when you're using them, because you feel like it's cheating. You know, which is, you know, and I know maybe it's part of the Irish DNA or something, I'm not sure, but you know, there's still lots of people who feel that when they're using AI tools, they're actually cheating. They're cheating their colleagues, they're cheating the business, and obviously it's the direct opposite. You know, as several of the speakers today spoke about the, you know, enhancing your role, enhancing your skills through AI. You know, and that it's not about role replacement, but you know, in my job, for example, I'll get replaced ultimately if I don't embrace AI, because I'll be competing against someone who is using AI. So I need to understand how to use it and how to bring value to my role in the company through AI. And it's to kind of democratize that thinking throughout the company is critical.
Brilliant. And Amy, like you have a lot of experience coming from startups in the DRC and then into corporates with MasterCard, and now with Delta Partners, like you've seen how innovative startups are in this landscape and they're moving quickly in relation to it. But I suppose, what are the signals that you look at when you're looking at them startups that are AI first and they're looking at deploying with customers? What are the kind of things that kind of the red flags potentially, or the positive signals that you see coming through?
So I suppose from a venture capital point of view, unlike a corporate that has to sort of try to whisk away risk, I run directly at risk, throw my arms around it and throw capital at it. So right now, being a venture capital in the current landscape is incredibly exciting, because there is literally opportunity like I've never experienced in my career for new players to emerge, new players to capitalize in the landscape. And we're seeing it, right? That actually the incumbents today in the AI space have only been in existence for a really, really small amount of time. We're already thinking of the OpenAIs, the Perplexities and Anthropics of the world as the established de facto legacy players, which is just insane. So from our point of view in Delta, everything that we're looking at walking through the door as an AI company, whether they know it or not today. We are looking at all of our portfolio companies from the point of view of where do you sit in the current map? Are you forward enough in your thinking to be able to compete with what's likely to come in the next period of time? Where might those challenges come from? But also, where are the opportunities for you to pivot as a small organization and meet some of those opportunities head on? And then beyond that, you know, all of the things that as a VC we've ever considered when we've been looking at a company still stand true in an AI first landscape. So for just, you know, this is, I probably don't even need to say this, but from our point of view, the most important thing is whether a young company has a team in place that has world level thinking, is approaching challenges in a new and novel way, and is bringing expertise and strategic thinking to the market in new ways that means that they're likely to win. So the team piece for us is absolutely critical. The market for us that they're directing themselves at is absolutely critical. You asked around AI specific signals. So beyond those which are kind of table stakes for us, the next thing is we are spending a lot of time thinking about data and data advantages. The companies that come into us and have solid strategies around data are the ones that we will spend time with. That might be a company where the founder has a specific vertical domain expertise, which means that they're leapfrogging others with the data that they can bring to the table from the get-go. It might be a company that has maybe already been delivering a service, not a product, but a service, and being able to aggregate data in novel ways and think about data in novel ways that they can now productize. So that data piece is incredibly important to us, because we're super conscious that where once all of the capital that we were putting into a company was going to be spent on headcount, actually it's probably going to be spent on data and compute instead. So we're really looking for that signal, the data signal. And then we're also thinking about the way that those early stage companies are thinking about cost of data going forward. So are they super smart in the way that they're thinking about the efficiencies that they're building into their teams from the get-go? Like, actually, we used to think about companies having to bring in loads of engineers. Today, that might not be the case. The CTO can actually probably last on their own with a couple of junior engineers for a couple of years, right? So thinking about that. And then we're thinking about what's the product you're building and how much is that going to consume from a cost point of view? And how does that marry up to the price that you can demand in the marketplace? Because we're really worried that we're going to back fantastic companies that put products out at the marketplace that gain traction, they're really exciting, but they actually can't price them appropriately to get the relevant margin. So yeah, team and market have always been really, really important signals for us. We're shaping our thinking around that even more so in the current environment. But data is the kind of the new multi-dimensional piece that we're spending time thinking about.
And for them companies that are selling into enterprise, do you think that enterprises are more, have they changed their mindset in terms of how they're looking at startups, in terms of the ease of maybe doing a proof of concept with them in a controlled environment? Do you see enterprise more open to it now? Or?
So, I mean, I'm super struck and have been talking about the MIT report a lot, right? There's a lot of interest in doing POCs, running pilots internally in enterprises, but also with third parties who can, you know, help you to build or who can be vendors to you so that you don't have to build internally. The problem is that there's a lot of learning that people are doing through those POCs and pilots, and we don't really want to back companies that's only revenue stream is pilot revenue stream. So we are seeing a lot of interest, but we're also working with our companies to try to be creative, particularly if they are ultimately going to be servicing enterprise customers, to be creative about their first go-to-markets. So I have a couple of companies that I work really closely with whose ultimate opportunity is very large organizations, it's very large players, but their go-to-market right now is much more like product-led growth. Get a feature out there, test it with young companies who don't have to do multi-month pilots, use that as almost like a bit of a growth strategy, both to test the market, but also to test your product. So yeah, there's definitely an openness, much more of an openness to run POCs and pilots. I'm concerned for our companies as to whether that actually turns into genuine revenue streams for them.
Brilliant. And Christina, from an Enterprise Ireland perspective, like a lot of the companies we deal with, they don't have software developers, they don't have CTOs, they have IT managers potentially, and they're looking at AI now, and some of the solutions they're looking at are maybe not off the shelf. So they need to look to maybe your research houses and the colleges and that. So how does Enterprise Ireland support from that point of view?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of supports out there going from the very small micro right up to the large company. The local enterprise office, the Kerry one is based out of Tralee. They have a number of different supports, Grow Digital, so that allows you to take on an external consultant to look at your current data sets and where the gaps are and what are the potentials. Also for Enterprise Ireland's clients, we have this model Ready, Steady, Go. So the Digital Discovery Fund, which is 80% funded, up to the maximum 5,000. That allows you to take on an external consultant, 3 to 7 days consultancy, and again, just do an audit of what you're doing at the moment and where the potentials are. We fund a number of technology gateways around the country. We have IMR that's based up in Tralee. We have Steuart, which is the AI center, and basically that will support you developing a prototype. There's 4 different chances to go for that fund. It's up to 10,000. One of them is matched. That really just develops out the prototype. And then following on from that, when you want to go out there and, as I say, go commercialize, Enterprise Ireland has a DPI fund, which is up to 100k of funding to just commercialize that and also consultancy in that available, and also to the local enterprise office. The smaller companies can go for R&D funding. So there's a lot of supports out there, to be honest, and even from the last 2 days, there's a plethora of supports there that companies should avail of, and just contact their local LEOs or their CA in Enterprise Ireland just to discuss further. Yeah.
Brilliant, thanks. And to you, Karl, in terms of like looking at deployment in your context, like what were the internal capabilities you needed to look at, and maybe what were the first gaps you had to close when you were reviewing it?
So I suppose from an internal capability, you often look first at technology capability, and that's less the case with AI. What was very important for us was around the data and the data integrity, and it's not just the source data, but it's also then the risk of contaminating data. So we have a number of products that rely on a data repository, so you have to make sure that data repository is really secure, that the content and the data within it is organized properly and structured correctly. That's great. You can then run your AI model on that. That's fine. Typically, then you're feeding that output into a different system. And if you end up feeding that output, and that output has hallucinations or is in some way inaccurate, you're contaminating then what could be a customer repository of data, upon which other actions like bookings or payments or whatever are occurring. That's really dangerous. So that's a key part for us, was understanding, the structure of data, the integrity of that data, and how you maintain that integrity as it flows through different systems and through AI. So that's an absolutely key piece for us.
And in terms of skill sets then internally and kind of reviewing that, is there any advice you have to companies when they're looking at deployment, of how they look internally first?
Yeah, it's not so much that, but one of the things that we did learn, was around UAT and testing. And with AI, you have to go to a completely different level of testing, and you really have to test the edge cases. So most kind of UAT are very much focused on, okay, what's the normal pattern, the normal behavior, testing for that, making sure there's consistent results, and that's fine, that works well. Obviously, you have to do that with AI products as well. But what's more important is, or equally important, are the edge cases, which could be, the 1 in 100 use cases for an AI system, because those edge cases tend to behave very erratically, and the outputs are often very erratic. So you have to manage that, and then you have to, you have to prepare for that and try and minimize those, and then acknowledge that they're going to happen. And then how do you manage that? So how do you make sure there's a human in the loop to manage and spot those, strange results that may be coming out of the system?
And to Amy, in terms of the companies you work with and the companies in your portfolio, like, have you seen examples, or could you share examples of companies that kind of went from that exploration into production, and maybe some of the de-risks that they took to kind of get their first enterprise customer?
Yeah, so I mean, from an enterprise customer point of view, to my previous point, they are all working on POCs and pilots with their enterprise customers. That is the de facto route into those. We've worked with some of those enterprise facing companies to think about how they construct that to be multidimensional, because it can often be constrained to just testing the technology. And so what we're encouraging them all to do is not just to test the technology, but to go through all of the other things that they need to go through for that first phase with an enterprise, which is also about, the commercial viability of what you're intending to do together. The viability if it goes into full production, and to be preparing themselves for full production along with the partners in enterprise. Enterprise deployment for a startup, that piece is really only one part of it. So all of our companies are also thinking about the kind of softer stuff that they need to be doing with the enterprises that they're working with, which quite honestly is trust building plan. We've one company that's working really, really closely with a global SI right now, and that has been internal sales by the CEO. It's multifaceted. It isn't just the tech piece. It's very much, how do you embed yourself? How do you make friends with procurement? How do you make friends with feature? All of that stuff is really important.
And do you see a change in terms of kind of that top-down approach within enterprises, that the more senior leadership are kind of pushing for movement in relation to it? And then, so like even talking through who needs to be in the conversation when you're
100% going in at the top, as high a level as you possibly can as a small company is absolutely the way to gain traction within an organization, because the budgets haven't been established yet in ways that you're going after a single economic buyer that knows that they're putting out an RFP for a solution. Everybody's experimenting and figuring it out. So I would absolutely agree with that the higher that you can target the organization, or also going in through innovation teams, that's the routes in that we're seeing that being the most successful.
And to you, Christina, in terms of companies or examples of companies that would have used Enterprise Ireland's supports in relation to AI, is there any ones that kind of come to mind that you could share?
Yeah, I think we ran a program there in out of MTU, New Frontiers program, and that's really good for a startup. Not only is it entrepreneurial development, but a lot of the companies that have gone through that have gone through the likes of the IMAR and developed out their prototype and tested. So that's been really robust. And I suppose for the startup company, they're much more agile to change in that. On the larger companies then, we've numerous ones. I was dealing with a company there at one stage, they're a waste water management company, and they were growing quite fast. So they engaged with Enterprise Ireland on just doing an analysis of their sales department and where were the gaps, where were the potentials, the digital discovery, and on the back of that then they developed out a product to just to kind of streamline processes more and that, and just see where the pain points are. So I mean, there's numerous, and as we've said earlier on, people are using AI and they don't even realize they're using it. So it's definitely a growth area, and it's definitely it's just going from strength to strength, really. And then you have that knowledge gap as well, as we were saying earlier on. People are still a bit nervous, they're still a bit afraid,
I was at an event recently, or on Wednesday, and Laura Plunkett from Cedar was there, and there were some examples, and it was very interesting to see how even larger companies were using the innovation voucher maybe in recommender engines and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's not just for micro SMEs, it's for larger companies as well.
Yeah.
They look, give us a data scientist for a couple of days to kind of look at this issue
Yeah.
we're having. So like when you look at innovation vouchers, what can kind of be included in them? You know, it's maybe to get a proof of concept potentially.
It's really to get a proof of concept, de-risk it a bit, and then you're going on, if it is positive, you're going on to development then after that. But it really does take the external expertise that you don't have in-house and give you a few different ideas and a bit of feedback in it. But yeah, I mean, it's a really good, and as I said there earlier on, you can go for 4 of them, so different iterations. I suppose with AI and that, it's a costly business, so to get return on investment in that, you want to try and de-risk it if you can earlier on in the process.
Brilliant. To you, Karl, in terms of like, it's been brought up quite a lot, and I think hearing a lot about it in the last couple of days, especially with the MIT 95% of pilots failing. But I think someone brought it up on Thursday that the research wasn't really, it was asking questions outside of a conference basically. But I suppose there's an aspect here in terms of your experience from developing internally and developing for customers as well, how you move that from a pilot into production, and kind of what are the pitfalls there, what are the things you need to watch out for, and ensure that there's success there.
Yeah, we actually started our AI journey slightly differently in that we took a revenue first ROI approach. So we started to think of products that we could bring to market as opposed to challenges that we could solve internally. And, you know, it sounds like we were very lucky because our first effort in that became a product. So we went from pilot to product fairly seamlessly. And I think one of the biggest challenges we had, though, in that, it's kind of 2. The first was kind of moving from it being a product to a service. Because when we were selling this to our customers, we tried to sell the product and rapidly realized actually what we need to sell is an entire service. So there needs to be a full wrapper around this product so that our customers who will be embracing this AI technology have the confidence around the data integrity and security, because it will be their data in many cases, that we would train and educate their people in terms of the technology that we were using. So it wasn't a black box, you know, full trust approach. They were trained, they were educated. Then there was the whole support function, because AI systems kind of wither on the vine. You have to keep iterating them. So, you know, it was educating them about the wrapper that would be provided along with the service. So I think that was a key learning for us. And then we started to bring our knowledge, or whatever knowledge we had at that point, to start to bring that internally and share it with the internal teams, and kind of democratize that knowledge and try and remove the fear or the loathing or the guilt, you know, and try and help our people find use cases internally which could be efficiency based, and, you know, prove out the value of that. That's actually turned out to be much harder than the revenue side, strangely. Equally important, but more difficult to deliver.
Very interesting. And Amy, you would have touched on it in terms of startups you look at and reviewing it, that some have moved from a service into a product. So like you touched on the whole area of trust and the relationships you build up with these companies, or the relationship they build up with their customers, and then being able to kind of present a product to that. What have you seen working in that regard, and maybe things that don't work in that regard?
Yeah, well, actually, the one that springs to mind is actually slightly more the other way around, where the company had built a platform. They were going out and speaking to customers. Customers were interested. Customers were doing POCs, but they weren't converting. So actually, they did the same. They built a service around it because it was a cold start problem for the end customer. The end customer knew that it solved a problem that they needed to have solved. wanted to deploy it, but had that issue of rolling it out with their own teams. So they weren't populating the platform, to get it up and running and to get going. So the company's actually built mini consulting around it, which is them going in, populating the product, getting it up and running, and then getting over that cold start issue. So then they can place I don't want to go into the details of the product, but they can place the platform into the hands of the people that are going to be using it with their data already inside. That's effectively how they've been doing it, which I think is a really interesting way to get into the market with some of this stuff. It's very different to deploying a vertical SaaS product where you're just plug and play and get going, and it's a very different environment for product deployment.
Brilliant. And finally, to yourself, Christina, in terms of tips around applications, like a lot of founders limited on time, and that, is there any kind of common tips you have, and maybe even common pitfalls to potentially avoid?
Yeah, I suppose there is. Yeah, I would definitely say it's not quantity, it's quality. You don't need to write a thesis, because most of the people that are going through those applications won't have time to go through, and you could miss out the real golden nuggets in the middle of your thesis. So definitely cut down on that. Really highlight, as Amy said, out the team, previous experience, and the capabilities of the product or service that you're potentially offering. So it's really a nugget, but definitely again, it's the same thing. It's back to the team.
And no ChatGPT, I'd imagine. And so
yes, and if you do use it, make sure you check.
make it concise. Look, thanks a million, guys, for coming. To Karl, to Amy, to Christina. And look, before I pass it over to Kerry, I want to congratulate Kerry on arranging a fantastic AI summer school. So it's I'm going to pass it over to Kerry. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Guys, I suppose what I'd like to say first is thank you for your time. Thanks for joining us for the full 2 days. Now that you've been in the space, you've seen the venue. If you ever want to run your own event from this space, you can actually rent out either this event space or for a half day or full day, or any of the meeting rooms. And if you're interested in running an event from the RDI Hub, you can reach out to Gearoid and you can scan that to get his QR code. And also, we're accepting new members. So if you're interested in becoming a member of the RDI Hub, you've walked around, you've seen the facilities, we're open to new members. And if you're interested in taking out membership, I suggest you speak to Megan Daly-Tyrrell. The two guys are here on the so if you want to talk to them. Last, just want to wrap up. I'd like to thank everybody. I'd like to thank all of our speakers. We've incredible speakers. We've fantastic panelists. It is just amazing. So many people helped make this thing a great success. We'd like to thank our partners, Microsoft, MTU, Adapt Centre, AI Ireland, South Kerry Skillnet, Connected Hubs, WDC, Tech Industry Alliance and Fexco. But last but not least, thanks for shouting me out, but an event like this doesn't organise itself. There were so many people involved. It's the entire RDI Hub team. It took months, an entire team to pull together. A shout out to Megan Daly-Tyrrell and Gearoid Kearney for chairing panels, Gearoid O'Sullivan on production, Fionnuala O'Callaghan, Grace O'Halloran and Amy Lucy of the operations team for making sure that everything ran like clockwork, Micheal O'Sullivan for marketing and photography, Chris Barrett for tech support and moral support, and a shout out to Anthony Metzepa and also all the team in Fexco. So there was Sharon Hanlon, Rose O'Sullivan, Liz McLaughlin and Catherine Evans for the introductions and the speaker suggestions that they made. Just a huge thank you for all the support, and I hope we see you all again next year. If you could give us just some feedback, if you could scan the QR code and just let us know what you liked or any suggestions, we'd really appreciate it. And thank you so much.